Chapter 601. Before arranging Ma Zhou to work, he had to build a house for himself. However, Zhang Feng had other plans. He called Guzi and Zhu Zi and said, "You two take him to Zhengtufu first and tell him that I told him to watch this kid and build a house not far away." Wei Shiyu was stunned when she heard that. Everyone was also stunned. "Fengzi, this is not right. Isn't everyone's residence at the foot of the mountain? How can he?" "Shu shu shu. This is my territory. Wherever I say he lives there." Zhang Feng was so happy that flowers were blooming in his heart. Ma Zhou thought that this was a great thing. After all, he had seen those houses when he went up the mountain. At this time, when he saw that Zhang Feng asked him to build a house on the mountain, he hurriedly bowed again. After Ma Zhou and Guzi left, Zhang Feng instantly smiled. That smile of his was really annoying. It made people want to beat him up when they saw it. As soon as he entered the door, Li Shimin asked, "Kid, where did you arrange for him to go just now? You mean you want him to raise pigs?" "Yes. Also, Old Li, although you don't know him, I know him very well. In the past he had been sending invitations to visit, but no one answered. That's why he reared horses for someone in Chang'an. He even worked as a page boy for 3 years. Tell me, is this person good at rearing pigs? And I can guarantee that as long as he comes, in less than a year, the pigs will be raised better than others." A student of the academy, you actually want him to raise pigs? How embarrassing it would be if this were to spread out. Alas! Li Shimin sighed. How many students of the academy are here? Although there are many people building houses at the foot of the mountain, most of them look like commoners. What are you doing? Facing Li Shimin's question, Zhang Feng spread his hands. Only ghosts know. How long has it been? Apart from this Ma Zhou, we picked and selected more than 50 people from these refugees. This is really strange. Okay, I have something to do. I will go back and see what is going on. While talking, Li Shimin left. Zhang Feng was stunned. You don't want to eat? No, I just had a bowl of porridge and a chicken. Do you think I am a pig? Li Shimin was speechless. Okay, I won't see you out. Zhang Feng spread his hands. This godforsaken place was a mess, and it didn't look like a place to entertain people. Once it was done, he would find a good place to build a house for him. After they left, Wei Shiyu and the others sneaked into the wooden house. As soon as they entered the house, "Fengzi, you know that kid?" "Know him? Not just know him." But it was not appropriate to say it now. Zhang Feng thought for a while and said, "I don't know him. But when I was wandering around Chang'an city, I heard of him. I didn't expect him to come." "No, Fengzi. What I mean is, does your family know that you are making things up for him? If he finds out, do you know how serious the consequences will be? And if this gets out, how can our academy continue to do business?" Zhang Feng glanced at Du Go. "Why do you want to go? Then go. I will get him back now." Du Go was speechless. He didn't want to be entangled in this matter. If this kid really wanted him to be a pig farmer, then there would be a lot of trouble. However, Du Go thought for a while and asked, "Well, it should be 10 days since the imperial edict was issued, right? No matter what, there should be some reaction. Why hasn't anyone come? Even if they walk, the people in Luozhou City who are nearby should have arrived long ago. Could it be that the effect of the imperial edict?" When Du Go said that, Wei Shiyu and Zhang Sun couldn't help but feel a little worried. "Fengzi, we are making a big fuss here. The news should have spread all over Chang'an City. Could it be that Guanlong's people are making trouble in the middle of the semester? Otherwise, why hasn't anyone come? We have to investigate this matter carefully. Otherwise, there will be a big problem." "What big problem? Didn't someone come today? We have to be patient. So what if no one comes? With the few of you and the 50 people outside, we can still make the academy prosperous." Zhang Feng didn't care. But to be honest, he was really worried. Now Ma Zhou was here. Where were Lai Ji, Sun Chuiwei, Gao Zhizhou, Wei Tongxian, Guo Jingyi, Li Yifu, and Hao Chujun? Was there something wrong with the plot? Logically speaking, they were now in Luozhou City, which wasn't far from here. They should have heard and seen the imperial edict, right? Or was there really a problem with the way the imperial edict was opened? Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. The more he thought about it, the more agitated he became. He simply stopped thinking about it. Damn it, maybe these people were all in the disaster, and would only come back after the disaster. Zhang Feng could only comfort himself in this way. However, what he didn't know was that at this time, Guo Jingyi and the others were looking in the direction of Chang'an, and thinking about the same thing at the bank of a small river about 300 miles away from Chang'an. Chapter 602. 3 days. Another 3 days passed. In these 3 days, Li Shimin followed Zhang Feng's instructions and gave out a pot of porridge mixed with chicken, duck eggs, and even pork. The food shortage in Chang'an city finally stabilized. There was no other way. It was not that Li Shimin wanted to do this, but because of the food shortage in the city, the food supply in the city had also decreased sharply. Not only that, the number of deaths of chickens, ducks, and pigs was also increasing day by day. There was no other way. Li Shimin could only open the granary and release the chickens and ducks. However, if this continued, although the famine problem could be temporarily solved, there would be problems in settling the people down. There was no other way. Li Shimin followed Zhang Feng's instructions and sent all these people to the imperial plantation, or Longsho Mountain, to reclaim the land and plant all the food that could be planted. He even encouraged the people to reclaim the land outside the city. At this point, the situation was slightly stabilized. This person, he was lazy. After solving the problem of food and clothing, the people's eyes were once again fixed on Xiao Mountain. After all, what was the point of having enough to eat? The food shortage this time also let the people see hope and despair. Under such circumstances, the rich families basically suffered very little loss. Only the ordinary people like them had to overcome more and more difficulties, and even worry about a meal every day. What was this? This was the disease of poverty. But what about Xiao Mountain? The notices from before once again appeared before the eyes of the commoners. What was this? This was something that could help them improve and make a name for themselves. The locust plague also made them realize that the only way to make a name for themselves was to go to the academy. And this academy, they could only afford to go to this free White Deer College. At the same time, at this moment, everyone in the hall received the imperial edict. After a moment of silence, everyone erupted in an uproar. I want to go to Chang'an. I want to go to White Deer College. Let's go to White Deer College. This was the most common phrase he heard in these places. On the road to Chang'an, all of them were poor students carrying mattresses, riding stoves, or taking care of carriages. All of them were desperately rushing towards Chang'an. However, not all of them were able to come to White Deer Academy as they wished. For example, the pawn shop in Chang'an West City. At this moment, in front of a house in the Qian residence. It was filled with delicacies. Some were steaming hot, while others were covered in dust. A noblewoman was kneeling at the door, her voice hoarse from crying. Wanli, say something. You haven't eaten for 5 days. My son, if you want to go to the academy, your father has already prepared the qualification for you to go to the Imperial College. As long as you say the word, you can go at any time. Son, what's so good about White Deer College? Go and take a look, go and listen. Those are the places where the children of the slaves' families go. Tell me, can we go there? Son, say something. Inside the room that was filled with wooden planks, there was still no sound. On the innermost beam of the room, a box of food was being hurriedly pulled up. On the roof tiles of the room, a youth said worriedly, Brother Wanli, you can't do this. Are you going to White Deer College or not? If you're not going, we'll leave first. I'll go, but how am I going to go out? I can't even get out of the door. When the youth on the roof heard this, he frowned and thought for a moment. Looking at Qian Wanli, who was lying on the bed, he said, Why don't we use a diversion tactic tonight and get you out of here? Get out how? Here. The youth pointed at an empty spot on the roof and smiled mysteriously. Qian Wanli instantly understood. Okay, I'll take a look. If it doesn't work, we'll charge out tonight. How about it? Okay. After the two of them agreed, the cries outside the door gradually weakened. However, the sobbing sounds were still at the door. Clearly, Madame Qian still hadn't left. Qian Wanli couldn't help but feel uneasy. However, for the sake of his ideals, He chose to ignore everyone for 5 days. But now, Mother, I'm fine. You can leave. I don't want to talk. Tell Father that I'm not going to Imperial College. If he wants to go, let him go. I'm not going to White Deer College. I'm not going. Okay. You evil creature. Do you know that Lao Tzu spent almost half of his family's fortune for this qualification? Now you're telling me that you're not going? Okay. Our Qian family has really declined. Not coming out? Fine, then don't ever come out. All of you listen up. He's not eating. Why are you still sending food over? To waste food? If he doesn't eat, he'll feed the dogs and the victims outside. Master, he's your son. Outside the door, Qian Tong glared angrily at the door. When Madame Qian heard this, she hugged Qian Tong's leg and cried miserably. Do you really have a heart of stone? You're the only one. Do you really have the heart to let him starve to death at home? You won't even let him go out? Okay. If you don't open the door today, fine. Qian, then buy a straw mat and bury me with it. I don't want to live anymore. Qian Tong's vision turned black. He almost fainted. Listening to the mournful cries, he was extremely annoyed. He threw out a key from his embroidered robe and shouted angrily with his hands behind his back. Get out! Go wherever you want. Lao Tzu doesn't care. Chapter 603. Then Qian Wanli went out. Some of the rich young masters in Chang'an city started to make their move. They were not as stubborn as the children of those officials. Those stubborn people were truly stubborn. However, they had disappeared overnight. After hearing that the 4 great demon kings had pulled in strong men, these people became well-behaved and did not dare to go out. Now these rich young masters finally dared to come out. However, they only dared to wander around the streets. How could they inherit those stubborn positions? Forget it. Ever since the 4 demon kings broke the legs of a stubborn young master who wanted to climb up the ranks, no one dared to do it again. This was not something a human would do. That young master was the only son of a 5th-rank official. Even so, no one had heard of him standing up for his family. No one except Ai dared to mention this matter. It was not that they did not want to, but they did not dare to. However, during this period of time, Chang'an city had calmed down. But the famine had also come. However, as the famine spread, the eyes of these rich young masters were once again fixed on the academy in Shao Mountain. They knew that even if they went to the Imperial College, they would not have a chance to stand out. This was because in this F***Ketup era, those who could get into high school were basically those who had connections. Were they worthy? However, this Shaoshan Academy was different. It even taught them how to do business. If they learned well, they could even work in important institutions like the Ministry of Works. What was this? This was a free lunch from the sky. If it was someone else who said this, they would definitely slap their mouths. However, this was an imperial edict. An imperial edict. And the person who issued the imperial edict was none other than that street bum in Tonghui Lane, a lazy man called Zhang Feng. However, before this he had opened some Chang, an university in Chang'an. However, that place, now it was a bunch of stubborn people. This could not help but make people think. How could an academy opened by a street bum be taken seriously? This was the reason why everyone was hesitant. However, as Qian Wanli walked out of the residence in a high-profile manner, he raised his arms and shouted, Lao Tzu wants to go to White Deer College. This time, the rich young masters in Chang'an city could not sit still. This was like a signal light. It even caused a series of shocks in Chang'an city. At this moment, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, this was an official position that was neither salty nor light. Although this position was usually not important, it was one of the few authoritative departments in the Tang dynasty, which was equivalent to the judges of the later generations. It was one of the rare cases with the highest rating, and it was a direct trial. At this time, on a bed in Zhao Yuxing's house, Zhang Gang's face was red as he held a notice. He stared at a middle-aged man and pleaded, Father, please let me go. Although my body is damaged, but I am your son. Can you bear to see your son being crippled by a stubborn person? Now White Deer College is your son's last hope. I heard that Dr. Sun Mr. Sun Simiao is on Shao Mountain. And I don't want to lie here for the rest of my life. I want to go to the academy. Aren't Chintiniu and the others at Chang'an University? I want to go to White Deer College. I want to take the Jinshi exam. I want to use my strength to kill them and take revenge for me. Zhao Gang's voice was very hoarse. He was far from being as elegant as before. Even his handsome face was full of vicissitudes and fatigue. His face was full of stubble. Although he was less than 20 years old, he looked at least 30 years old. At this moment his emotions were very calm and cold. His hand stubbornly grabbed Zhao Yuxing's robe. Under the bed, Zhao Gang's 12 concubines were also kneeling on the ground, trembling. Together with Zhao Gang's biological mother, they were begging Zhao Yuxing. Gangzi, it's not that I don't want to promise you, but if you do this, how can I be at ease? Also, remember this grudge clearly. It's best if you forget it. Otherwise it won't be just you. You'll implicate the entire Zhao family. Do you understand? In fact, they all knew the true identity of Chintiniu and the others. However, at this moment, Zhao Gang was blinded by hatred. He didn't care about the consequences at all. He only wanted revenge. However, he didn't know what it meant to be able to cause such a huge commotion in one night. Moreover, even the Grand Secretary went to the palace to meet the Emperor without success. This meant that the Emperor had tacitly agreed to it. Moreover, according to his sources, Chang'an University was a trial set up by the Emperor for the Crown Prince. Moreover, the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang, was also at Chang'an University. What did this mean? This meant that whether it was Chang'an University or White Deer College, they were both set up by the Emperor himself. His purpose was self-evident. If someone dared to cause trouble at this moment, what would they do? That would be courting death. Therefore, Zhao Yuxing didn't dare to use the entire Zhao family as a stake to avenge his son. Although his son wouldn't be able to continue the family line in the future, Zhao Yuxing had been desperately trying to make babies during this period of time. The family line wouldn't be cut off. However, at this moment, Zhao Gang didn't cry or make a fuss after receiving his father's final answer. He only said indifferently, "Father, I have a request." Zhao Gang ignored the sharp pain in his crotch. He trembled as he got up and knelt beside Zhao Yuxing. I, Zhao Gang, have decided today to sever all ties with the Zhao family. I want to go to Mountie. I want to avenge myself. Although they're people I can't afford to offend, I'm still young. If I can't take revenge in a year, I'll use 10, 20, or even 30 years to climb to the highest position. I don't believe that I can't kill them. Chapter 604. Zhao Yuxing knew that his son had been spoiled since he was a child. But what could he do now? There was really no way for him to take revenge. If he were to force himself to take revenge, then he would definitely. At this moment, Zhao Gang gave Zhao Yuxing a terrifying feeling. Master, are you willing to see your only son degenerate like this? He's your son. Are you really that heartless? Please have mercy, Master. Master, are you really going to take this lying down? You're the Chancellor of the Supreme Court. Now that your son has been deposed, do you think you can hold your head up in the court? Master, don't think too much. Whether they're the son of a duke or a relative of the emperor, they still have to abide by the law. Enough. Shut up, all of you. Zhao Yuxing was furious. Do you think I don't want revenge? I do. I want it more than anyone else. But look at him. What has he done? He's jealous. Married more than a dozen concubines before he's even 20. Went to Yanlai restaurant to cause trouble. And openly competed for the title of the Four Great Devils. What is this? This is rebellion. Do you know that? The emperor already knows about this. Last time, during the morning court, the emperor deliberately mentioned it. If you act rashly, it means that the Zhao family will be exterminated. What? The emperor already knows? Then. That is to say, this matter has been tacitly approved? But this shouldn't be. Zhao Gang's eyes couldn't help but be covered with a layer of despair. But in the blink of an eye, his eyes regained their clarity. Father, I won't be a burden to the family. Father, mother, take care. As he spoke, Zhao Gang got up and trembled as he took out a stack of divorce papers from under his pillow. He looked at the concubines kneeling in front of the bed and said, I, Zhao Gang, I'm divorcing you today. I previously had some property in Chang'an, but I've sold it all. It's in my study." As he spoke, Zhang Gang walked away resolutely. Zhao Yuxing's body trembled violently, but when he thought of the emperor's words and the entire Zhao family, he couldn't help but crack his knuckles. "Master, are you so cruel?" "Shut up, you bitch. If you didn't spoil him so much, would he be so arrogant and despotic? Would he fight over Chang'an's 4 great demon kings at Swallow Descent Restaurant? Do you think anyone can fight for it? It's a method that His Majesty planted among the common people to rectify us. You can't even understand this and you want me to avenge him? If he wants to go, then let him go. Someone come. Send me a notice. Once I, Zhao Gang, step out of the house, I will be considered as being expelled from the Zhao clan. No one is allowed to have any contact with him. Otherwise, they will also be expelled from the Zhao clan." With that, Zhao Yuxing left. It wasn't just the Zhao family. Even though the Go family had fallen and was struggling to survive in Chang'an city, they were still preparing for something. Their old master, the supervisor of the imperial astronomer, had been beaten to death by the retired emperor when he reported to the retired emperor. The retired emperor didn't care about it and acted as if he didn't know anything. This time, young Master Go, the Go family's most promising candidate to enter the imperial court and become an official, had also been kicked to death by Chimo. After lying low for a while and seeing that the Zhao clan hadn't stepped forward, the Go family met White Deer College again and held a family meeting. Basically, everyone from the Go family was there. They were doing this for no other reason than because young Master Go had been making noises about going to White Deer Academy after he received a letter from Zhao Gang. This was a big deal. Even though young Master Go would no longer be able to do that in the future, this still allowed him to settle down and study poetry. This was a good thing. Moreover, with his current crippled body, he definitely wouldn't be able to enter the Imperial College and other ordinary academies. That was why today was happening. "Everyone, you are all elders of the Go family. Our Go family has been developing since the Han Dynasty. Although we have fallen, we have also been glorious. However, today our Go family is covered in dust." In the Go family's ancestral hall, a white-haired old man holding a walking stick looked at the pale-faced young Master Go and said, "Today, although the clan leader has passed away in humiliation, this dog of an emperor doesn't care and has once again encountered Huir's humiliation. What is this? This is a disaster for our Go family. We didn't stand on the right side. However, this is nothing. Our Go family still has hope." As he spoke, the old man pointed at young Master Go Yuhui, and said, "You all know that Hui has been sharp and intelligent since he was young. Although he was wrong this time, I went to the Life Transformation Temple to beg the Master. The Master only gave me one sentence. Nirvana rebirth. What? Nirvana? What does that mean? Could it be that our Go family will?" The old man gestured with his hands and said, "Today, you all know why I brought you here. Right now Hui wants to go to White Deer College. Our enemies are all stubbornly gathered at Chang'an University. This is our chance. As long as Hui can pass the imperial examination within 3 years, everything that has happened to our Go family will be resolved. Even our grievances will be exposed. After all, the dog of an emperor once said that whoever passes the imperial examination will be granted a wish. This is our Go family's chance at survival. Even if we can't take revenge, our Go family won't lose our influence in the imperial court. Do you all agree to Hui going to White Deer College in Mount Xiao?" Chapter 605. Have you heard? The kids from Tonghui Lane have all gone to White Deer College. This sentence had almost become something that the people of Chang'an would hear or discuss every day when they met. At that moment, in front of the East Market Treasury in Chang'an City, a line was waiting for the porridge. Everyone squatted on the roadside and smelled the fragrance of the bone-strengthening powder and the cooked chicken and duck meat in the air. Each and every one of them swallowed their saliva. Even those who had money and leftover rice at home ran over. It would be worth it even if you bought a bowl of porridge for 1 copper coin. Why? because the porridge was not only made with the bone-strengthening powder, which they could not afford to eat normally, but also with the fragrant big white chicken and big white duck. How could the porridge made with such ingredients not be good? That was why the citizens of Chang'an city could not sit still. Even if they had to line up before dawn, they had to wait for a bowl of porridge. At that moment, the bored crowd looked at the rising smoke and began to discuss again. Your news is outdated. Have you heard of Hungtong Pawn Shop? A short and stout middle-aged man in the crowd wiped the sweat on his face with a brocade handkerchief and asked loudly. Sure enough, the crowd could not help but look over when they heard that. It didn't matter when they looked at it, but when they looked again, a hint of disdain flashed in their eyes. I was wondering who it was. Isn't that the accountant of Zhouji Grain Store? Why? Did you sell out all your grain? Why are you begging here? The fat man glared at the person who spoke. Get lost. Lao Tzu is craving for the bone-strengthening powder. Otherwise, Lao Tzu would not be squatting here with you. More importantly, I'm sick and I want to eat this. The crowd could not help but purse their lips when they heard that. Although they did not believe it, the powder was indeed delicious. More importantly, the bone-strengthening powder could make an old woman run fast, even if she only had to carry a handful of water after eating it for 3 days. What did that mean? That was good stuff. The crowd suddenly remembered what the fat man had said earlier. They asked, You mentioned Hungtong Pawn Shop. What's wrong? Is it yellow? Yellow chicken, let me tell you. Last night, I was drinking with the bookkeeper of Hungtong Pawn Shop and learned of a big matter. Do you know Qian Tong? Does he have money? The richest shop in Chang'an city is the pawn shop. You can imagine how much money Qian Tong has made over the past few decades. His son, Qian Wanli, actually gave up the opportunity to go to the imperial college that Qian Tong paid a high price for. Instead, he went to the newly built White Deer College in Mt. Shao. Buzz. Hearing this, everyone felt like their heads were about to explode. What was going on? What was the imperial college? That represented the royal family's highest educational institution. You're not even going? What was Qian Tong thinking? Was White Deer College really that good? Everyone thought about it and hurriedly urged him again. Accountant Mao, please continue. What else? Qian Tong is a well-known figure in Chang'an city. How could he let his only son go to White Deer College? That's crazy. What kind of things are taught in that place? Anyone who learns from a teacher for a year or so will be able to wield a knife and go to war. Where can he go to learn? And learn for 3 years? Even if he's qualified to work in the Ministry of Works, the chances of getting a position are very slim. Which commoner can be so lucky in the imperial examinations now? The fat man surnamed Mao looked at the crowd with a smug face and slowly said, I don't know what Qian Tong is doing, but I know that you know Lord Go, the imperial astronomer, right? You know Lord Zhao, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, right? Last night, I heard that both of them took action. Even if their son leaves the family, he still wants to go to White Deer College in Mt. Shao. When everyone heard this, they couldn't sit still anymore. Although everyone was interested in White Deer College, it was just interest. It was enough as long as they could fill their bellies. Basically, other than Hui Tongfang, not many people in Chang'an city dared to send their sons there. Why? Because they were afraid. They were waiting to see who would take the lead. But now, Lord Go of the imperial astronomer, the son of a 4th-rank official, could go. Although they didn't know how Lord Go was executed, this skinny camel was fatter than them. Even he could go. Moreover, Zhao Yuxing was a 5th-rank official. His son would rather leave the family and go to White Deer College in Mt. Shao. What did this mean? Didn't they have any connections? No. Which one of them didn't have connections in the imperial court? But even so, they still wanted to go. Then there was more to say. Even the son of a noble could go, but commoners like them couldn't? What was this? Motherf asterisk Kerr. Could it be that they were more precious than those famous clans and families? Everyone couldn't help but feel flustered and embarrassed. They started to wonder if they should go to their residences and see if they could find someone to ask if it was true. And at this moment, not far from the treasury, countless people carrying ragged cloth bags suddenly swarmed over. People who were wrapped in large bedrolls or sheepskin scrolls swarmed over, as if they were fleeing from a disaster. Among the people leading the group, there were 4 young men who were anxiously asking about something as they walked. May I trouble you to ask, how do I get to White Deer College? Sir, may I ask, how do I get to White Deer College in MT Shao? Everyone was dumbfounded. They asked cautiously, judging from your accent, you must be from Luozhou? Hao Chujun, who was neatly dressed, walked in front of the crowd. He cupped his hands and said, I'm Hao Chujun from Luozhou. I'm here to study at White Deer College in Chang'an City. May I ask, sir, how do I get to White Deer College? Everyone was dumbfounded. They couldn't help but panic. Motherf asterisk Ker, people from Luozhou are here. Motherf asterisk Ker, don't they want to be in a favorable position? Chapter 606. Everyone could not sit still. Someone pointed to the outside of the city. But the next moment, the people behind him ran away with their bowls when they were about to start eating. The person who pointed to the outside of the city hurriedly ran back with his bowl and said, Get out of the city. Turn east, turn right, and go straight. He was nowhere to be seen. There was nothing they could do. He had been waiting because he wanted to see who would take the lead in Chang'an. Now that the young masters of the Qian, Zhao and Go families had gone there, they were tempted. But now, the people from Luozhou were here. What the hell were they waiting for? Were they waiting for White Deer College to put up a sign saying that they had enough people and were not recruiting? Were they going to ask for help? F***ck. Everyone wished they could give themselves a few tight slaps right now. Damn it, they had been flying eagles all day long. Today they had been pecked blind by the eagles. Hao Chujun and the others were dumbfounded. He grabbed the slow old man and asked, Sir, what's the meaning of this? Why did they run away? Oh, they were full and saw that you were hungry, so they made room for you. They were full? Wasn't the vault not open to give out porridge? How could they be full? Hao Chujun, Lai Ji, and the others looked at each other suspiciously. Then they put down their bags and squatted by the roadside to give out porridge. It was not that they could not afford it. It was that where could they buy it along the way? Now they could not even buy a bite of food with money. They had not touched their travel expenses along the way. They were so hungry that they felt dizzy. When they arrived in Chang'an City, they heard that the porridge in the vault not only contained bone-strengthening powder, but also chicken and duck. 1 bowl of porridge could last them 3 days. That was why they hurried over. They wanted to buy a bowl of rice. They had eaten bark and grass along the way. Their mouths were full of the smell of bark. If they went up the mountain like this, how could they have the face to read the sage books when they met their teacher? Open the porridge. At this moment, a sound rang out as the door of the treasury slowly opened. Waves of enticing fragrance made the several hundred students from Luozhou temporarily forget about the sage books that they were craving for. They took the bowls and rushed to the treasury. At this moment, Li Yifu hurriedly shouted from behind the crowd, Hao Chujun, Lai Ji, something happened. Hao Chujun, Lai Ji, come out quickly. Stop eating porridge. Something big has happened. But there were too many people, and everyone was so hungry that no one cared about Li Yifu's shouts. Li Yifu didn't care anymore. She tossed the bowl in her hand to Gao Zhizhou and managed to get a bowl of porridge from the crowd. After everyone was full, Hao Chujun smacked his lips and said, This legendary bone-strengthening powder really has a different taste. Oh right, Emantian. Why did you call for me just now? Li Yifu ate the last drop of porridge in the bowl with a spoon, then rubbed his belly and said, Those bastards, do you really think they're giving us space? They went back and dragged their families to Shao Mountain. Hearing this, in an instant, the several hundred youths who were still commenting on this bowl of porridge abruptly stopped talking. Everyone was stunned. The next moment, someone in the crowd shouted angrily and smashed the bowl in his hand. He shouted angrily, Bastards! He's really a F***king bastard. Let's go, damn it. We can't fall behind when we go to Shao Mountain. Damn it, let's go. The next moment, under the astonished gaze of Zhongguan, who was distributing porridge in the treasury, the several youths who looked like refugees all smashed the bowls in their hands and scampered away. Only the remains of the bowls were left on the ground. What's going on? The few workers in charge of distributing porridge were stupefied. I heard that they were going to Shao Mountain? They looked at each other. The next moment, everyone was shocked. White Deer College. They were going to White Deer College? Hundreds of people from Luozhou were going to White Deer College? Not good. Boss, I'll take a leave of absence and bring my son to White Deer College. I'll take a leave of absence too. Me too. An official was holding a pen in his hand and was recording the distribution of porridge and the sales of porridge today. He didn't even notice that the ink on the tip of the pen had dripped onto the paper, creating a large blooming ink flower. He was staring blankly at the people who left in a hurry. What was wrong with these people? Shao Mountain. White Deer College. What were these people? Were these people crazy? However, the next moment, he couldn't help but think of something that he had forgotten. It was an imperial edict before the famine started. It seemed like the White Deer Academy was written on the imperial edict. It seemed that these people were talking about White Deer College the most recently. Wasn't no one going? What was going on? Were they having a stroke? Why were so many people going? When he thought of this, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He slapped his thigh and shouted, "Not good. Someone quickly report this to Elder Fong." However, other than the crows of the roosters and the high-pitched cries of the ducks, his voice could only be heard in this empty treasury. There were only the sounds of bubbles boiling in the pot and popping in the congee. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. There wasn't a single person around him. He was so angry that he threw away the pen in his hand and said fiercely, "People, are they all dead? No one is going. Lao Tzu is going himself." Chapter 607. Zhang Feng didn't know what happened in Chang'an City. In 3 days, Ma Zhou's house was finally built under Zhang Feng's deliberate arrangement. It was a 2-story little red house. At the bottom of the house, there was something that looked like a lattice. The lattice was not big, only about 10 square feet. The fences of each lattice only reached the height of a person's chest. Inside there was a water trough, a food trough, and a door. However, there were dozens of such things. It could be seen how big Ma Zhou's house was under Zhang Feng's deliberate arrangement. The second floor was for living. Ma Zhou knew that one was for sleeping. After all, there was a bamboo straw bed in it. The other room was similar to a study, but there was nothing in it except a table and stool made of bamboo and a bookshelf. Oh, there was also an oil lamp. However, there were only 2 rooms with a study. The other 9 rooms only had 1 bed. That was all. Zheng Tufu and his son and daughter-in-law happily became his neighbors. In the other room lived a man who made Ma Zhou's hair stand on end. It was said that he was an old eunuch from the palace. When he was in the palace, he was a big shot. His main job was to clean people's bodies. Ma Zhou always felt a little creepy when such a man lived next door. Of course, the house that the eunuch lived in was much better than Ma Zhou's. After all, his house was the largest and best house except for Zheng Tufu's house. Behind the house, one could see a waterfall in the depths of the Shao Mountain. It was enough to prove that this man's importance was incomparable to Ma Zhou and Zheng Tufu. Ma Zhou didn't understand this arrangement. But it was a great honor to have a house here. After all, except for the teacher Zhang Feng and the others, everyone here was still living in shacks made of twigs and sheepskin. Every time someone passed by, they would comment on this house and show envious eyes. However, Ma Zhou always felt that something was wrong. As for what was wrong, he didn't know for the time being, but he always felt that something was wrong. At this moment, just as Ma Zhou placed his few books on the bookshelf and covered his bed with a layer of dried straw, Zhang Feng walked into Ma Zhou's room with a blanket in his arms under the envious gazes of Zheng Tufu and his family. Seeing this, Ma Zhou hurriedly stood up and bowed. Student Ma Zhou pays respect to teacher. Ma Zhou, are you satisfied with this house? Time was tight, so I didn't have time to paint it. Once Li Gan is done with his work, I'll personally ask him to bring someone to paint it for you. Then, I'll add some furniture for you. That's how a house should look like. But now the conditions on the mountain are limited, so you have to bear with it for a while. When Ma Zhou heard this, he instantly teared up. Thank you, teacher, for your kindness. What virtue and ability does Ma Zhou have to deserve such kindness from teacher? Ma Zhou is really terrified. Ha ha, it's fine, it's fine. Zhang Feng rubbed his hands. Since you're free, I have something to tell you. Zhang Feng pointed to the floor and said, Do you know what's under here? Ma Zhou shook his head in puzzlement. The architecture here was simply inconceivable. How would he know what those circles below were? Although he had a rough idea that this was not a place for humans to live in, he had no idea what it was used for. He hurriedly bowed and said, I'm willing to listen to teacher's teachings. Zhang Feng was speechless. But what he liked about Ma Zhou was his vigor. It was more convenient to use him like this. When they arrived at Xiao Mountain, Zhang Feng had basically prepared everything that he could think of for Ma Zhou. This made Li Chengqian and the others jealous. But Zhang Feng only said one sentence. They could either have the house as a gift, but there was a condition, and that was that they had to rear pigs. When they heard this, each of them ran away faster than the other. They did not even dare to look at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng gathered his thoughts and looked at Ma Zhou up and down. Then he said, I heard that you've been in Chang'an for 5 years? Why didn't you participate in the last imperial examination? Ma Zhou's eyes darkened when he heard this, but he did not dare to not answer. He said, Teacher, you need to send your name to the imperial examination. Before I met teacher, I sent my name to all the places in Chang, and that I could send my name to, but I heard that you raised horses? Zhang Feng did not want to listen to his long-winded words and asked directly. Zhang Feng already knew about this. Ma Zhou's face turned pale when he heard this. He said helplessly, Yes, I did. It was all for my livelihood and to buy a book. I had no choice but to do this. Good, very good. Raising horses is good. Ma Zhou's expression froze. Raising horses is good? How is it good? If it was not for the handwritten authentic work of the former great scholar Qin, would he lower himself to feed horses? This was a humiliation to the literati. He did not understand what Zhang Feng wanted to say. What was the connection between this and the small enclosure below? He could only bow and wait quietly. When Zhang Feng saw this, he patted Ma Zhou's shoulder and said, When I saw you for the first time, I knew that you and I were fated to meet. So now, I have an important matter that I want to entrust to you. Are you willing to do it? Chapter 608. Ma Zhou's heart tightened. His eyes reddened involuntarily. Who was he? To put it bluntly, he was just a down-and-out scholar. If he hadn't met Zhang Feng, he might have starved to death in this famine. What did he do to deserve Zhang Feng's favor? Was this the blessing of the ancestors? It must be. Ma Zhou hurriedly wanted to kneel, but Zhang Feng's cough woke him up. He didn't know whether to kneel or not. He was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks. Seeing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but smile. You don't have to do this. Although we are now teacher and student, if you don't want to, I won't force you. Teacher, please rest assured. No matter what, I'm indebted to you for accepting me as your disciple. I will go through fire and water to repay you. Good, good, good. I'm relieved to hear your words. Zhang Feng rubbed his hands and narrowed his eyes into slits. He pulled Ma Zhou to sit on the bed beside him and said, Let me tell you something first. What does the Tang dynasty need the most now? Food. Ma Zhou didn't even think about it. Zhang Feng asked again. Then why do we study? Why? Ma Zhou couldn't help but be silent for a moment before he said, If it were before, it would be to pass the imperial examinations and enter the official career to serve the Tang dynasty. What about now? Zhang Feng asked again. Ma Zhou was silent for a while before he said, To save the people from water and fire. Now the Tang dynasty has experienced countless disasters since the founding of the country. Now we are facing drought, locusts and famine again. Although the wise emperor of the Tang dynasty has set up the cooperative that is beneficial to the people, and you have also made beer. You took the wheat that sprouted from the poor people. In the eyes of others, you may be the kind of bodhisattva who saves people from suffering, but more people say you are a prodigal. But I think if everyone in the world could be like you, there wouldn't be disasters in the world. Zhang Feng was delighted to hear that. Although he really didn't want to listen to flattery. However, he still felt extremely comfortable when Ma Zhou flattered him. Zhang Feng signaled Ma Zhou to continue. Ma Zhou then said, Actually, all of this was foreseeable. While everyone was working behind closed doors, the teacher put in 20,000 don of grain to suppress the price of grain. This forced the imperial court to lower the price of grain. What is this? This is carelessness. This is also what we need. But in the Tang dynasty, basically, out of 10 people, 10 of them are rough men who can't read big words. What's this? This was a crisis. If a country can't even popularize the most basic things, it's extremely dangerous. This is also why I thought about it for 3 days after I saw the imperial edict. Why did the teacher do such an unprecedented thing? Free. Confucius once said in his book that one should not receive a reward for nothing, let alone knowledge. This is what I've been most confused about recently. Although I have a general idea after reading the contents of the imperial edict and seeing what happened on the mountain in the past few days. Zhang Feng interrupted Ma Zhou and asked, "You are right. Although my academy doesn't charge money, it is a little. However, I have a condition. Do you understand now?" Ma Zhou nodded. "This is also why I admire you the most. You use labor to replace labor. Although we don't charge money, we use another method to make up for it. However, this is only useful in the beginning. If we wait until Mount E is built, then this method will be." Zhang Feng waved his hand and said with a smile, "You are very good. There are not many people who can think of this now. Even Chen Tiniu and the others pestered me for several days because of this. I didn't expect you to be enlightened. In fact, this is also our task." "You're right. How can we free these poor commoners from their poverty? On one hand, we need the government to be benevolent. On the other hand, we need people like us to perfect it and then give it back to the commoners. This is also what Confucius taught us. I once saw a sentence in an ancient book. It is better to teach people to fish than to give them fish. This is my original intention of establishing this academy. Do you understand now?" Ma Zhou could not help but be shocked. Although he couldn't figure out where this sentence came from no matter how hard he racked his brain, the impact this sentence had on him, and what Zhang Feng was doing now really opened a door to him that he had never touched before. Ma Zhou could not help but tidy up his clothes and bow respectfully. "I understand." Zhang Feng saw that the time was ripe and said, "So I will tell you one more thing. Teacher, please speak. I intend to hand over the matter of rearing pigs to you. They are the economic pillar of White Deer College. Are you willing to take over this heavy responsibility?" Ma Zhou was dumbfounded. After talking so much, all she wanted was for him to raise pigs? At this moment Zhang Feng added, "Don't worry. Every one of them who wants to study here will have a different task. This task will ultimately affect your academic credits. However, I can guarantee that after 3 years, no matter what, I will recommend you to the Ministry of Administration. Are you willing?" What could Ma Zhou say? He could only bow hurriedly. "I will listen to teacher's instructions." Chapter 609. Zhang Feng was in a good mood when he saw that the matter was settled. He patted the disappointed Ma Zhou and said, "Ma Zhou, do a good job. I can guarantee that if I, Zhang Feng, can't teach you to become a jinshi in the imperial examination 3 years later, I, Zhang Feng, will present my head to you." Ma Zhou was shocked when he heard this. He hurriedly said, "As a teacher, you can't do this. It's already a great honor to be able to study in the academy. As a teacher, please don't do this. Otherwise, Ma Zhou will only feel ashamed to face you." Zhang Feng knew that Ma Zhou would feel aggrieved in his heart. This would directly affect the growth of these pigs. He then said carefully, "I know that you must think that raising pigs is such a lowly and shameful thing. How can a Confucian student be entrusted with such a lowly and shameful thing? You're wrong. If it's an ordinary pig, I naturally won't let any of you touch it. Even if you want to raise it, I will drive you out. But this is different. The porridge that you eat every day has this pork in it. Let me ask you, how many people can afford to eat mutton now? This pork is basically the main source of income for the people. However, this ordinary pig can only reach a weight of about 50 kilograms after a year. Moreover, it is extremely thin. However, I have found a way to make this pig grow to 200 kilograms within 3 months. Moreover, it doesn't have a foul or fishy smell. Not only that, I also want to use this pork to replace the realgar powder in the porridge. When the time comes, it will be able to enter the elegant hall and become the emperor's breakfast. The reason why I didn't ask others is that I'm worried. You're very careful. You are meticulous, and you are a scholar. You know what these animals need to eat and so on. These are all knowledge. If there is a little problem with one of them, it will affect the taste of the pork. That is why I asked you to come. Do you understand my difficulties? I'm doing this for the welfare of the people in the world. I'm making an excellent breakfast for the emperor. Finally, Ma Zhou was shocked by Zhang Feng's persuasion. He couldn't help but ask in a trembling voice, 3 months? 200 caddies? And it doesn't have a foul or fishy smell. This is something prepared for the emperor? For the welfare of the people in the world. Yes. Zhang Feng continued to tempt him. Think about it. Isn't this what the sages said? Bow your head and be willing to be an ox, frown and be pointed at by thousands of people? Zhang Feng's famous sentence erupted once again. He didn't care if Ma Zhou could understand him or not. In any case, he just said whatever he wanted to say. The flesh on Ma Zhou's face trembled as he spoke. He was abnormally excited. What is this? This was a teacher imparting moral principles. This was something that could never be learned from books, poems, etiquette, or the book of songs. But now, Zhang Feng was also pretending to be impressive. As for the purpose, let's not talk about it then. It was all to trick Ma Zhou and let him raise pigs for him with peace of mind. After all, he had been craving this thing for more than a day or two. After that, Zhang Feng took Ma Zhou and the old Xiaocai and knocked on the old eunuch's door. The old eunuch was from the palace and was called Eunuch Gao. However, her common name surprised Zhang Feng. His name was Gao Jingyi. Eunuch Gao. Gao Jingyi opened the door and was somewhat displeased. Old man already said that you can call me Old Gao or Old Gao. You brat, what are you trying to do? Eunuchs who left the palace were generally not allowed to use the name of the palace, nor could they use the word eunuch. After all, it was a disgrace to the royal family. Moreover, Gao Jingyi was also flustered. He was originally cleaning people in the palace, but after he left the palace, he became involved in the business of raising pigs. Although they were all Taoists, it was still somewhat embarrassing. At this moment, Zhang Feng scratched his head embarrassedly. He didn't mind at all. His skin was as thick as the city wall. Well, I found a few helpers for you today. This is Ma Zhou, my brother. He has experience in raising. Well, this is Zheng Tufu and his son Zheng. Ahem, I'm Zheng Fengxian. Zheng Tufu's son knew how powerful this master was. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't know his name, he hurriedly added, Today, I was thinking that since you all live in the same building, you should basically take care of each other in these matters in the future. Old Gao, I'll leave this matter to you. As for what you want, you just need to tell Ma Zhou. Old Gao pursed his lips. He glanced at Ma Zhou, who was as thin as a monkey, and then at Zheng Tufu and Zheng Tufu, who were as strong as iron towers. His gaze involuntarily fell on the three's crotch, and the three couldn't help but turn pale. Old Gao pursed his lips. I'm used to it. Well, since we're all working for Prince Zhang, let's start the knife test today. When Zhang Feng heard that, he hurriedly winked at Zheng Tufu. Old Zheng, what are you waiting for? Old Gao is going to accept disciples. What are you waiting for? Zheng Tufu was stunned for a while. Then he hurriedly slapped the back of Zheng Fengxian's head and roared. Brat, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Zheng Fengxian was a little dumbfounded. What was there to learn about blacksmithing? It was not as satisfying as a butcher's knife. Chapter 6:10. After solving the problem of the pig, Zhang Feng encountered another big problem. At present, the situation on the mountain was basically stable. As for the teaching building, Zhang Feng had basically confirmed that it was a 3-story building. There was no other way. This grandson was too sneaky. Now he even had an old eunuch from the palace who specialized in cleaning people on the mountain. Who could resist him? If this grandson was forced into a corner, he would stab you when you fell asleep. Therefore, under normal circumstances, when people saw Zhang Feng, they basically felt cold and insecure. There was no other way. Who knew if this grandson would do something bad to you? Although it was not very likely, they did not dare to make any guarantees. At this moment, these guys were squatting on the high platform at the gate of the mountain, looking down the mountain in a daze. Zhang Feng happened to pass by at this moment. He was going to check on the situation of the food storage in the past few days, and look for Sun Simiao to study a kind of hay. However, from afar he saw these guys slacking off and couldn't help but be angry. He shouted a few times, but these guys didn't respond at all. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel puzzled. He climbed up the sentry post made of 3 intersecting logs. Even when he sat down, these guys didn't notice him. What are you looking at? Zhang Feng couldn't help but be very interested. Following their gazes, Zhang Feng couldn't see a single person at the foot of the mountain. He couldn't help but feel more confused. When Zhang Feng's voice rang out, it instantly gave everyone a fright. Cheng Chimo, who was sitting on the edge, almost fell down. F*ck Feng Z. You mother *ker, say something. You'll scare me to death. Do you understand? Zhang Feng spread his hands speechlessly. I've already shouted until my voice is hoarse, but you didn't hear me. Who's to blame? But what are you doing? Wei Shuyu Li Chengqian Zhang Sun, Chong, and Cheng Chimo couldn't help but sigh when they heard this. Sigh. You've been circling around that horse all day. Haven't you noticed that there are no more people going up the mountain today? Zhang Feng was stunned. Isn't it good that no one is around? This meant that the famine was under control. Wasn't that a good thing? I say you guys are cheap. When there are more people you complain. When there's no one left you guys. No. What we mean is that there is no news at all. This imperial edict should have been known by all the people of the Tang dynasty. Logically speaking, at least a few people should have come. But how long has it been? It's already July and there's not a single person here. This isn't normal. The few of them spoke. Zhang Feng finally knew what these guys were worried about. He couldn't help but fall silent. Looking at the empty mountain path, he could not help but make up his mind. Isn't it just people? Including the few of you, there are already 60 people on this mountain. What are you afraid of? Let's not talk about 60 people. Even if there is only one person, I've said before that my academy will continue to set up this place. Zhang Feng also found it strange. The imperial edict had been issued for more than half a month, but there was not a single person. No. There was only Ma Zhou. This was not normal. Since Ma Zhou was here, it meant that the people of Chang'an city knew about it. What about how Chujun and the others recorded in history? Where did they go? Moreover, not to mention Chang'an city, it had been almost 20 days. Even if the person who delivered the imperial edict had crawled, he should have reached the place by now, right? Could it be that these people were all on the way? Zhang Feng shook his head. Who cares? If they're not here, then they're not here. Lao Tzu did not care. By the way, the situation on this mountain has basically stabilized. Li Gan, you have a lot of connections. Go to the city and find me dozens of top carpenters. I've already found carpenters. Look at these beams. These are all carpenters. I'm talking about carpenters who do delicate work. At the very least, carpenters who make carved fans and the like. Li Chengqian was stunned. He looked at Zhang Feng and asked, What? You want to make fans? Get lost. Zhang Feng said angrily. It seems that the academy will basically take shape in a month. Moreover, this person has nothing to do. There will always be problems. I'm thinking of ordering a batch of teaching aids. But I'm still worried about this person, so I want you to find a few people who know him well, and bring him to the mountain. It's best if they can stay on the mountain. Li Chengqian and the other 3 people were a little confused. What kind of teaching aids do you need such a craftsman? Such craftsmen are rare in Chang'an city. But there are some, but it's not easy to find them. But what exactly are you going to do? Zhang Feng was too lazy to explain. He showed them the triangular board, compass, and other figures on a drawing in his arms. The few of them stared at each other, unable to understand what was going on. In the end, Zhang Feng said lightly, Didn't you think that mathematics is nothing? Didn't you show off that you've learned it? Then let me ask you, what is the length of 30, the width of 20, and the height of 10? This is all knowledge. This is all mathematics. How much do you think you've learned? Come, I'll give you 3 days to calculate this question. If you've calculated it correctly, You can do whatever you want until the academy opens. How about it? Li Chengqian and Du Go looked at each other. Then Li Chengqian asked solemnly, Feng, is this also mathematics? What else? This is real mathematics. Great knowledge. Li Chengqian took a deep breath. He solemnly folded the drawing and put it in his arms. I'll go find a carpenter now. Chapter 6:11. The reason why Li Chengqian left in a hurry without asking any questions was because he suddenly realized that the teaching tools Zhang Feng was going to make this time were the real skills he wanted to impart to them. Even the multiplication table and division table that he had mentioned before, what were those? Li Chengqian's intuition told him that it was a calculation method about the area. However, he was speechless when he was asked such a simple question. What kind of calculation method was this? In the past, when they calculated this kind of thing, they basically used steps and prints. But now, Li Chengqian's intuition told him that this thing, which he had never seen before, was a good thing. Although he didn't know what Zhang Feng was going to do this time, he still had to prepare these things. After all, although there might not be anyone coming, what if someone came? As soon as he went down the mountain, Li Chengqian hurried to the Ministry of Works. The Ministry of Works was a place where all kinds of strange and obscene skills were gathered. Basically, everyone who could enter the Ministry of Works was the best in the Tang dynasty. The Ministry of Works was undoubtedly the place to find such skilled people. However, before Li Chengqian entered Chang'an city on a fast horse, he was suddenly shocked by what he saw in front of him. At the city gate, countless people were rushing out of the city. Those people looked as if something terrible had happened in the city and wanted to escape. Li Chengqian had never seen such a scene. Even when the Turks were about to enter the Wei River, the people of Chang'an city didn't look like this. What was going on? However, Li Chengqian made way for the public road. After careful observation, he found that these people had one thing in common. They were young. Most of them were young. Some of them were wearing shabby clothes, and some were wearing luxurious clothes. Li Chengqian even picked up a few stubborn people who used to wander around Chang'an city under the alias of Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian couldn't help but stop them and ask, "Where are you going?" Those stubborn people turned out to be Li Chengqian. They were a little surprised. "Brother Li, aren't you at Chang'an University? Why are you out of the city?" Li Chengqian couldn't be bothered to explain. He pointed at the crowd and asked, "What are these people going to do? What happened in Chang'an city? What happened?" They looked at each other and said in surprise, "You don't know about this?" Li Chengqian was also anxious. "What do I know?" "You really don't know?" They were even more surprised. Basically, everyone in Chang'an city who could understand human language knew about this matter. How could this guy not know about it? Were they still the former 4 great demon kings? Holy shit! What was going on? Strange expressions appeared on their faces. One of the youths came to Li Chengqian's side and whispered into his ear, "Are you sure you don't know?" Li Chengqian was also anxious. "If I knew, would I need to ask you?" Seeing this, they said, "Are you sure you don't know about White Deer College?" Wunk. A buzzing sound rang out in Li Chengqian's mind. Could it be? Are these people going to White Deer College? F***ck. Then Li Chengqian could not help but be shocked. Looking at the thousands of people rushing out of the city with weapons in their hands, the hair on his body stood on end. "Oh no!" Li Chengqian screamed. He even forgot about the matter of going to Chang'an city. He got on his horse and rushed to Mount Han, leaving behind a few stubborn people who looked at each other. F***ck. What's wrong with young Master Li? Did he take the wrong medicine? No, I think he's going to Mount Shao. Look, he's just about to enter the city. Could it be? They could not help but look at each other again. At the same time, a sentence flashed in their minds. This guy had already gone to White Deer College. On the other side, Li Chengqian was shocked. He had always thought that Zhang Feng's college was too outrageous. He had read the sage's book, and it was very clear that one should not take a book for free. However, Zhang Feng did the opposite. Not only did he not want money, but he even wanted to arrange for him to enter an important department in the palace. Although Li Chengqian and the others thought that Zhang Feng's actions were outrageous, they could understand it. However, how could ordinary people accept it? But now, F***CK, it was not that they could not accept such a college, but they wanted to come together. Li Chengqian waved his whip, as if his life depended on it. He hated the fact that the horse was too slow. If only it had a pair of wings. That way he would be able to see Zhang Feng's shocked face earlier. Giddy up! Giddy up! Giddy up! Li Chengqian waved his whip and rushed to White Deer College. Along the way, Li Chengqian ignored all the greetings of the people who were transporting materials to and fro. The onlookers were baffled by this scene. Before reaching the gate, Li Chengqian saw Zhang Feng and the others standing on the sentry post. He waved his white robe and shouted, "Fengzi, something happened. Something big happened in Chang'an." Chapter 6:12. Zhang Feng, who was arguing with Chengchumo and the others about the importance of cement, wondered if he was playing the lute to a cow. And at this moment, Li Chengqian's voice at the foot of the mountain saved his life. How could you explain this to a few uncouth men and a monk? This was King fatal. Li Chengqian was simply a great savior. Before Zhang Feng could thank Li Chengqian silently in his heart, his next sentence scared Zhang Feng so much that his legs went soft. The few of them were basically in the same situation. They anxiously leaned on the railing of the sentry post and looked at Li Chengqian at the foot of the mountain in the distance. They shouted, "What happened?" However, the distance was too far, and Zhang Feng's lung capacity was not enough. Once he shouted, he felt suffocated and dizzy. Zhang Feng hurriedly grabbed Chengchumo. "Tainyo, shout. Ask what happened." "What happened?" Zhang Feng was not worried about anything else. He was only worried about his small pub and the brewery, especially the basement that he dug. It was filled with money that he had saved up. There was also a book of 300 poems of the Tang dynasty that he had prepared to write to show off. If that place was destroyed by thieves, he would lose a lot of money. That was what he had prepared to present to the emperor when he entered the imperial court. He would use it to show off. The other one was the winery next to the tavern. Now that most of the workers in Tonghuifang had left, the workers there had been replaced by old Li's men. Although the sprouted wheat stored in the winery had been dried and stored to be used for brewing wine, it was still edible at a time like this where diseases were everywhere. If someone who was starving went to get it for him, that was basically the same as cutting off his only source of income. Seeing Zhang Feng begging, Chengchumo finally cleared his throat and shouted, "Young Master Li, Fengzi asked you what happened. Is there something wrong with the tavern?" This voice exploded like muffled thunder, instantly causing Li Chengqian's warhorse to tremble. Only then did Li Chengqian roar, "No, nothing happened to the tavern." Amidst the wind and the rustling of the tree trunks, that was all the crowd heard. "It's gone. The tavern is gone. Something happened." When Zhang Feng heard this, he only felt his head sink and was about to fall head first. "It's over. It's all over. I don't want to live anymore. It's Lao Tzu's money. Lao Tzu's poetry collection." Fortunately, Wei Shiyu and the others were skilled. Seeing that Zhang Feng was about to fall, they hurriedly pulled him back. At this time, everyone at the mountain gate also heard this sentence. Old He and the others could not help but explode. "What? Did you hear that, neighbors? Fengzi's tavern is gone. Workers of Tonghui Lane, get your weapons and go down the mountain. Let's see who has the guts to touch Fengzi's tavern. Go, go, go. Fengzi, don't take it too hard. We'll avenge you right now. Go, 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 avenge Fengzi. Fengzi's tavern is in trouble." At this time, as this matter spread around the mountain gate, everyone was also talking about it. Unwittingly, as the rumor spread, the atmosphere changed. Fengzi is in trouble. Fengzi is gone. Fengzi is in trouble. Quick, go to the mountain gate. Someone is fighting their way up the mountain. Fengzi is in trouble. What? Everyone was dumbfounded. What happened to Fengzi? However, in the next moment, the people who were working at the construction site were furious. If it were not for Zhang Feng, how would they be able to eat their fill? If it were not for Zhang Feng, they would have starved to death. If it were not for Zhang Feng, How would their son have the chance to enter the school? If it were not for Zhang Feng, how would they be able to find a way to survive in this year of disaster? But damn it, someone dared to cause trouble? Brothers, Fengzi has given away his entire family fortune for us. Now someone wants to kill Fengzi. What is this? This is destroying our way of survival. I can't stand it. Let's go kill him. No matter who it is, if he dares to touch Fengzi, he will be my enemy for life. Let's go, let's beat him to death. At this moment at the back of the mountain, which was the pig farm in the call of Shao Mountain, Zheng Tufu and his son, as well as Ma Zhou, were squatting on the ground, watching the old eunuch Old Gao sharpen a strangely shaped knife while explaining the techniques of pig slaughtering. At this moment, the dog suddenly rushed over. Oh no, something happened. Brother Fengzi is in trouble. The few of them heard that. They were instantly shocked. What? What's going on? Dog, what happened to Fengzi? The few of them hurriedly asked. Zheng Tufu picked up the butcher's knife and rushed to the dog. He shouted angrily. What happened to Fengzi? Give me a clear explanation. The dog was also scared out of his wits. He hurriedly said in a trembling voice, I just heard at the construction site that something happened to Fengzi at the entrance of the mountain. I heard that he was... What? Zheng Tufu was shocked when he heard that. Damn it, who dares to touch Fengzi? Lao Tzu will not let him off. While shouting, Zheng Tufu hurriedly rushed out of the mountain gate with the butcher's knife. Old Gao, Ma Zhou, and Zheng Tufu's son looked at each other and hurriedly followed. Chapter 6:13. Mount Tai was not big. However, the news spread very quickly. As time passed, everyone knew one thing. Zhang Feng was killed. How could that be? Who the hell dared to cut off their livelihood? If it wasn't for Zhang Feng opening up the food supply, most of the people here would probably starve to death or become beggars by the city gate. However, since Zhang Feng suppressed the food price, not only could they fill their stomachs, but they also had meat to eat for every meal. They also had jobs. If they did well, they could even earn a little money. Although the money was not much, at least it could get them through this disaster year. However, who had the guts to touch Zhang Feng now? Therefore, regardless of whether it was a 65-year-old man or a 12-year-old child, the stones on the mountain were free anyway. They grabbed 2 smooth pebbles and rushed to the mountain gate angrily. Kill! Avenge Zhang Feng! Who dares to make trouble on the mountain? Kill him! Cheng Chimo and the others who were at the mountain gate were dumbfounded when they heard that. He patted Zhang Feng, who was also dumbfounded, and said, Fengzi, what's going on? Why are these people shouting to avenge you? Who knows? Zhang Feng was also dumbfounded. Looking at the angry crowd running over, he had no choice but to stand on the big cart at the mountain gate and shout, What's going on? Don't you want to work? The one who rushed the fastest was Gan Ziyuan. However, he suddenly saw Zhang Feng climbing onto a big cart from afar. He could not help but slam on the brakes and spread his arms to stop the crowd. Only then did he stop 3 feet away from Zhang Feng and the others. At this moment, everyone saw Zhang Feng. They could not help but look at each other. What's going on? What's going on? Didn't Fengzi say something happened? Could it be? Is it a ghost? Is Fengzi really dead? Everyone was dumbfounded. When Zhang Feng heard this, he was in a bad mood. Who the hell said I'm dead? Who's the one with the rotten mouth who said I'm dead? Zhang Feng was trembling with anger. As more and more people rushed over, after seeing Zhang Feng's appearance, even the women and children directly knelt on the ground and wailed. Oh my God! What a good person! Which damned bastard came to harm him? My mother! Avenge Fengzi! Look, Fengzi was worried about the academy even when he died for us and for our children. Take revenge! I must take revenge! I want revenge! Seeing that everyone was crying and saying such things, how could Zhang Feng not know that there was a problem? However, he didn't know where the problem was for the time being. However, did this have anything to do with Li Gan's words? Holy shit! It was over. What the F***CK? Stop. Don't cry. Shut the F***CK up, Lao Tzu. Cheng Chimo couldn't sit still anymore. Even though his brain was a beat slower than others, he understood the cause and effect of the matter. He wanted to laugh. Wei Shiyu Zhangsun and the other three wanted to laugh as well. However, this was not the time to laugh. Under the instigation of several people, Cheng Chimo brought out his domineering aura of a stubborn demon king. Needless to say, this roar was really effective. The wailing stopped. Those who wanted to avenge Zhang Feng shrank into the crowd and didn't dare to make a sound. Zhang Feng pulled at his hair. He wanted to say something, but in the end he couldn't say a word. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. Go back, I'm fine. Don't believe the rumors. At this moment, Zhang Tufu and the others squeezed through the crowd. When everyone saw this, their eyes couldn't help but light up. Zhang Tufu's murderous aura was the bane of spirits. He urged him, Zhang Tufu, go take a look at Feng Zi. Are you sure he's alright? Yes, Zhang Tufu, your murderous aura is heavy. Go take a look. Zhang Feng had no choice but to let Zhang Tufu massage him. Zhang Tufu's face was about to explode. Wasn't Feng Zi fine? At this moment, everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths. Zhang Tufu silently tidied up Zhang Feng's messy hair. Then he waved his butcher's knife and roared, Motherf *Ker Gozi, you piece of trash, come out from Lao Tzu. You Motherf *Ker dare to say that Feng Zi is dead. Do you believe that Lao Tzu will kill you first? Gozi, who was squeezed in the crowd, shuddered. He quickly shrank his body and crawled out of the crowd. At this moment, under Zhang Tufu's confirmation, everyone finally knew that Zhang Feng was fine. Only then did they leave embarrassedly. It's good that he's fine. Ha ha ha, he's fine. Go and do your work. Are you slacking off here? Let's go, let's go. Feng Zi is fine. Zhang Feng was speechless. He wished he could find someone to beat up. However, after looking around, Qin Tiniu couldn't beat him. Idiot Wei and Bug were even worse. There was only one soft and Du Dabing. But he was afraid. A beating was a beating. This grandson would surround you and recite scriptures for a few days. Who could stand that? In the end, Zhang Feng's eyes lit up. He looked at Li Chengqian, who was rushing down the mountain, and shouted angrily, Li Chengqian, you bastard, die. Chapter 6:14. Li Chengqian was very anxious. A large number of students were running up the mountain. He had just seen Zhang Feng, and even saw a large number of people gathered at the mountain gate. But why was there no one now? But this was not important. What was important was, he had to let Feng Zi know the good news. The path up the mountain was not straight. It was a winding road built with the mountain. At this time, he could not see anyone on the road. It was as if everyone had gone up the mountain in an instant. He even saw some people cooking in the huts where the fire was lit. At this time, he suddenly heard Zhang Feng's roar. Although he could not hear it clearly, he could faintly feel that Zhang Feng and the others were running down the mountain. Li Chengqian hurriedly waved his horsewhip and shouted, Feng Zi, don't come. Run back. Get ready, people are coming. There are so many of them. But in the forest, especially in the windy forest, the meaning of these words was different. The few people running down the mountain, as well as Gan Ziyuan and the others behind them, heard, Feng Zi, don't run back. There are so many people coming. As soon as he heard this sentence, Zhang Feng didn't feel good at all. As for Gan Ziyuan, he staggered and fell into the mud. Damn it. This was the Crown Prince? What was the Crown Prince doing? He was going crazy. Zhang Feng also stopped running. He was so angry that he looked left and right. Feng Zi pulled a thin bamboo from the side of the road and held it in his hand. Instead, he listened to the sound of horse hooves and waited. Why should I run? This bastard will definitely come up. Although he did not know why he beat Li Chengqian, he had to vent his anger. Anqing Chimo and the others did not say anything. They pursed their lips. Anyone with eyes could see that the four of them were trying very hard to hold back their laughter. But Zhang Feng did not notice this. His attention was focused on the sound of horse hooves. Hearing the sound of horse hooves gradually approaching, the laughter in their eyes deepened. But the fear in Gan Ziyuan's eyes grew stronger and stronger. Damn it, it's over. What did the Crown Prince just say? If he hit him with the stick, it would be a big problem. What should I do? Help. Or not to help? Just as Gan Ziyuan was in a dilemma about whether to help or not, Li Chengqian's white horse finally came from afar. When Li Chengqian saw Zhang Feng and the others waiting here, He was puzzled for a moment. However, he didn't think too much about it and rushed towards Zhang Feng. Before he could dismount, Zhang Feng picked up the bamboo stick and threw it at his head and face. Awo. Don't hit me. Fengzi, are you crazy? Why are you hitting me? F***ck stop. Holy shit. Li Chengqian was badly beaten. Most importantly, this thin bamboo stick only hurt when it hit someone, but it didn't leave any wounds. At this moment, Li Chengqian was grimacing in pain as he kept shouting, Iron Bull, you motherf***ker, are you still watching the show? Come and stop the fight. What is the meaning of this? F***ck. Awo, stop hitting him. If you keep hitting him, do you believe that Lao Tzu will get angry? Awo. Before he could finish speaking, a high-pitched scream was heard. Li Chengqian had never been beaten in his life. This beating stupefied Li Chengqian's entire person. Finally, Cheng Chimo and the others couldn't stand it anymore. Cheng Chimo lifted Zhang Feng up, as if he was carrying a chick. Fengzi, calm down. Put me down. Pick me up. Who was the one being impulsive? Zhang Feng's anger had also subsided. However, he still felt uncomfortable when this matter was mentioned. Fengzi, calm down. Listen to what he said. Don't you know him? Even if you give him 10 guts, he won't dare to say anything bad about you, right? Du Go also hurried forward to persuade him. Zhang Feng thought for a moment. He struggled out from under Cheng Chimo's iron pincers and asked, What did you shout at the foot of the mountain just now? Didn't I just shout that something happened and a lot of people came? What's the big deal? Did you beat me up because of this? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded and slapped himself hard on the face. Cheng Chimo and the others were also dumbfounded. Li Chengqian was even more dumbfounded. Did this guy do it because of this? Hit me? Zhang Feng finally remembered something at this time. When the sound was transmitted in the wind, there would be a deviation. Why didn't I think of it just now? However, he had already hit him. What could Zhang Feng say? He coughed and said, Do you know why I hit you? How would Li Chengqian know? He stared at Zhang Feng and clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. Seeing this, Zhang Feng didn't dare to say anything. He hurriedly calmed himself down and said, I asked you to go down the mountain to do something, but you just went down the mountain and ran up. 3 points will be deducted from this semester's credits, but for your sake, this meal will make up for those 3 points. Bang! Before Zhang Feng finished speaking, Li Chengqian's fist landed on Zhang Feng's stomach. What the F***ck? I thought you were doing it for something. You hit me for this? What the F***ck? Look at the foot of the mountain. What's at the foot of the mountain? Li Chengqian was about to cry. Although he punched out, it just tickled Zhang Feng's stomach. It didn't hurt at all. He didn't dare to hit Zhang Feng. This was an unexpected disaster. This was simply an unexpected disaster. However, at this time, Zhang Feng and the others were also dumbfounded when they looked at the foot of the mountain. Zhang Feng patted Li Chengqian on the shoulder and asked blankly, Li Chengqian, who are those people running wildly at the foot of the mountain? Chapter 6:15. Zhang Feng was a little dumbfounded. At this moment, standing on the winding mountain path, they could already see the faint silhouettes of people at the foot of the mountain. There were a lot of people, but they looked slightly better than those who were fleeing. Among them, there was no lack of people wearing brightly colored clothes. That was what puzzled Zhang Feng. Li Chengqian didn't say anything. He rubbed a bloodstain on his arm and snorted. Then he turned around and rode his horse up the mountain. When Zhang Feng saw Li Chengqian running away, he hurriedly followed him up the mountain. Gan Ziyuan, on the other hand, was stunned. He didn't care who was coming down the mountain. After all, this mountain was in high demand. There were many people who had come. But at this moment, the one who shocked him the most was the Crown Prince. He was beaten up and ran away without saying a word. Was that the Crown Prince? He felt that his worldview had been destroyed. The Crown Prince. He was a high and mighty person. How could it be like this? On the other side, at the foot of the mountain, Li Yifu and the others looked at the rising smoke and the banging sounds of tents and trees. They couldn't help but feel excited. Brothers, we're here. Hao Chu-jun and the others looked at the mountain in front of them in surprise. Is this the White Deer College mentioned in the Imperial Edict? It doesn't look like it here. They looked at the place that looked like a construction site, and couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Was this an academy? Wasn't this a construction site? Let's go. Didn't you see so many people running up the mountain? That means this place is right. Lai Ji wiped the sweat off his forehead and tightened the blanket on his back. Then he hurriedly followed the footsteps of the people from Chang'an. It couldn't be helped. The people from Chang'an were very crafty. While they were eating, many people had disappeared in just a short while. When they came out of the city gates, they saw that there were more people outside the city than inside the city. How could this be? How the F***ck could this be? The people from Luozhou couldn't sit still. She scampered up the mountain after him. At this moment, just as they were about to cross the Wei River, they saw dozens of youths looking at the group in a daze. One by one, they were asking questions. Excuse me, where are you going? Brother, where are you going? Did something happen in Chang'an City? But no one cared about them. There was no other reason. Because in the eyes of the people in Chang'an, and as long as you looked young, you would definitely go to White Deer College. How big was White Deer College? How many people could he take in? If all of them went up, wouldn't his chances be reduced? This is our Chang'an, an academy. We can't let outsiders take advantage of it, can we? Therefore, as long as someone asked, the better ones would reply that they didn't know, and the worse ones wouldn't even look at them. It was as if he had met his mortal enemy. At this time, Hao Chu-jun and the others had just passed by these people, and saw the honest Lai Ji being pulled by the arm. Brother, may I ask where you're heading to? I don't know, ask someone else. Without waiting for Lai Ji to speak, a fair and plump Chang, an youth who had just passed by, said something in a low voice and then pulled Lai Ji forward. Kid, if you want to go to White Deer College, don't interrupt. If you dare to say anything, your chances of entering the school will be reduced. At that time, you can do as you see fit. Under the gaze of the youth, Lai Ji nodded. Oh, Lai Ji replied. He turned around and said, Brother, you're going to White Deer College too. Look, we're all going to White Deer College. Li Yifu and the others were dumbfounded. The youth was dumbfounded. The youths who passed by Chang'an City were dumbfounded. Everyone looked at this dark and swarthy weirdo, as if they were looking at an idiot. F***ck, you're a F***king idiot. Go go go, brothers, run faster. Hao Chu-jun and the others looked at Lai Ji speechlessly. Although they knew that Lai Ji was doing the right thing, if they were to fall out with these people and say something bad about them in front of the examiner, then they could only pat Lai Ji's shoulder speechlessly. Let's go. The youth who had asked for directions thanked them profusely. He was inexplicably surprised and ran madly again, spreading the news along the way. They're going to White Deer College. Come back, don't go to Chang'an City. Here, these people are all going to White Deer College. Hearing that, the people who came from Chang'an City and the children who were preparing to go to school ran even faster. Some of them even abandoned their luggage. They carried their dolls and ran up the mountain. They had no choice. There were so many people. If they went up, how many of them would stay? If they didn't give these foreigners a chance to speak, they would be fine as Chang'an residents. However, it was different now. Everyone panicked. Charge. Who cares? Don't bother with your luggage. As long as you enter the college, Lao Tzu will sell his house to get your luggage. Go 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 go. Damn it, don't block the way. The vast and mighty group of people, like a swarm of migrating locusts, instantly swarmed like a tidal wave toward a small three-pack in the middle of the two mountains. Hao Chu-jun and the others' luggage had been squeezed to God knows where. At this moment, they could only follow the crowd up the mountain. One could imagine how dense the crowd was. Chapter 6:16. On the mountain. Li Chengqian was sitting in a carriage at the entrance of the mountain. A guard disguised as a servant was rubbing medicine all over his body. Li Chengqian was in so much pain that he was grimacing in pain. At this moment, Li Chengqian's guard at the foot of the mountain rushed up the mountain. Prince Zhang, bad news, bad news. Something has happened at the foot of the mountain. There are about 3,000 people at the foot of the mountain. Although most of them are in disguise, most of them are young people. It's suspected. What? Zhang Feng could not help but turn pale with fright when he heard this. At this moment, Li Chengqian glanced at Zhang Feng proudly. Now you know how to be anxious? Li Gan, Uncle Li, who are these people? Zhang Feng was anxious. Could it be that they had encountered bandits? At the thought of this, Zhang Feng could no longer remain calm. This was a possibility, a real possibility. The fact that there were 30,000 dan of grain on the mountain had long been an open secret. If they had encountered bandits, then it really made sense. Zhang Feng could not help but feel his hair stand on end. Idiot Wei, quickly get Li Gan's horse and take a shortcut down the mountain. Go get reinforcements and report to the authorities that bandits are here. Also, Tiniu, do you have a handy weapon here? Quickly call someone to guard the gate. De Bing, quickly go up the mountain to find Dr. Sunday. Ask someone to hide the grain. Zhang Feng finally panicked. He finally knew why this guy was so anxious. Damn, so many people had come. Why did they not even let out a fart when they went up the mountain? Could it be that this guy had a card up his sleeve? Or Zhang Feng could not help but feel relieved. Ching Chimo and the others stood there motionless, allowing Zhang Feng to jump up and down like a monkey. It seemed that they had already thought of something. Looking around, Zhang Feng only saw the citizens of Tonghui Lane standing behind him with a common enemy, while Chen Tiniu and the rest looked left and right. No, this isn't right. Zhang Feng suddenly thought of something. If the bandits were here, Li Gan would be the most anxious one. He was the one who found the craftsmen and paid for the construction of the academy. If the bandits were here, he would be the most anxious one. But this guy was still so carefree. Something was wrong. Involuntarily, Zhang Feng's anxious heart calmed down for a moment. Li Gan? Brother Li, Uncle Li, tell me, who is the person down there? Uncle Li. F***ck. Lao Tzu won't wait if you don't say anything. Zhang Feng also lost his temper. You're not going to tell me? Did Lao Tzu not know how to wait? Zhang Feng couldn't help but sit down as well. Old He and the others looked at each other. At this time, if they could not see anything, then they would have lived in vain. They could not help but wave their hands. Let's go to work. Only then did they leave resentfully. However, these people looked at Li Gan with unfriendly eyes. Fine. You're awesome. You offended Feng Zi today. You'll have to eat, right? When the time comes, Lao Tzu will add some spice to your sauce. At this time, Cheng Chumo and the others also gathered around Li Chengqian and sat on the bus openly. Wei Shiyu even brought a chair and sat at the mountain entrance. She even held a shoulder pole in her hand, looking ready to fight if there was any disagreement. They did not have to wait too long. After all, the time it took for Li Chengqian to go back and forth was enough for them to go up the mountain. The first batch of people went up the mountain. They stood impatiently at the mountain entrance. Those who knew Zhang Feng pointed at Zhang Feng and shouted in surprise, "Look! He's Zhang Feng! He's Zhang Feng! He's waiting for us! Hurry! Tidy up and greet the teacher!" Clang! Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. Ching Chimo and the others were also dumbfounded. Even the shoulder pole in Wei Shiyu's hand fell to the ground. "Fengzi, I say, what's going on?" Zhang Feng did not know. However, when he saw Li Gan's donkey face, he could not help but roll his eyes. He got up and cupped his fists. "Everyone, I'm Zhang Feng. What can I do for you?" Everyone saw. They hurriedly bowed with various etiquette. Student Zhang San greets the teacher. Student greets the teacher. Greetings the teacher. Voices rang out in unison at the entrance of this small mountain gate. In an instant, everyone in the White Pants Academy heard it. Everyone forgot what they were doing and stared blankly at the mountain entrance. The large group of young people were dumbfounded. Damn, what's going on? Where are the bandits going up the mountain? Why are they all kowtowing to Fengzi? Damn, could it be that imperial edict? Hiss. At the thought of this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Seeing more and more people at the mountain entrance and hearing more and more laborers gathering behind them, Zhang Feng and the others finally exploded. Cheng Chimo slapped the back of his head and shook Zhang Feng's shoulder in horror. he asked in a trembling voice. Damn, are these all the students who came up because of the imperial edict? I'm going crazy. Who are these people? They came in a group? Chapter 6:17. At the mountain gate, in the eyes of everyone, Zhang Feng was wearing a Confucian robe. Although he was standing quietly in the wind, he gave people the feeling that he was so elegant and free. At this time, everyone only felt that Zhang Feng was like a great Confucian, lowering his head and pondering. And they all knew the masters behind Zhang Feng. After all, who dared not to know the four great devils of Chang'an? And they were of the same age. Needless to say, Zhang Feng was actually able to make them submit to him. They did see Li Chengqian when he was riding a horse and running wildly. At this time, seeing Li Chengqian sitting there with scars on his neck and the back of his hand, how could they not know that he was beaten? Who hadn't experienced it? But who was this? This was one of the four great devils. He dared to beat him. And he beat him so obediently. Damn. This Zhang Feng was indeed not ordinary. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't speak, everyone became more respectful and couldn't help but lower their backs. Behind them, more and more people rushed to the mountain gate. The mountain gate couldn't hold them, so they stood on the hillside near the mountain gate and bowed respectfully. And behind Zhang Feng, Gan Ziyuan eunuch Gao Mazhou, Zheng Tufu and his son all came. Looking at the scene in front of them, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. At this time, Li Chengqian was also frightened by the people behind him. Not for anything else, but because there were too many people. How much food was there on the mountain now? Are these people here to eat up the rich? He glanced at Du Go, who was actually hurriedly flipping through the account book. Several people unanimously refused to stand beside Zhang Feng and hurriedly asked, Fengzi, aren't there too many people? So many people, my God. Are they here to eat the rich? What should we do? Do you want me to ask the servants to drive them away? It was fine if Li Chengqian didn't speak. As soon as he spoke, Zhang Feng exploded. He grabbed Li Chengqian's shoulder and shook him desperately. Why? Why didn't you say so earlier? Why didn't you say so earlier? Where did you go earlier? Li Chengqian was speechless. Motherf ***, the moment I went up the mountain, you gave me a good beating. Now you're giving me a chance to speak? F***ck. Then why didn't you tell me when you went up the mountain? Lao Tzu doesn't want to talk about it. What can you do about it? Zhang Feng knew that he was in the wrong, so he raised his middle finger speechlessly. What are you waiting for? Aren't you going to register it? Zhang Feng glared at Du Go and the others. Only then did they stifle their laughter and hurriedly move the things. Wei Shiyu and Qing Chumo, on the other hand, had nothing to do. They stood at the entrance, each holding a shoulder pole. They glared angrily at the crowd at the entrance and roared, "Shut up! Those who want to enter the academy, line up for Lao Tzu. Don't talk. Whoever dares to say a word will be kicked off the mountain by Lao Tzu. You take your men and hold the line. Whoever dares to cause trouble, break their legs and throw them off the mountain." Qing Chumo's roar was very useful. At the very least, it intimidated the crowd. Zhang Sunchong climbed up the sentry post and took a look at the foot of the mountain. He saw that the winding path from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain was densely packed with people, extending into the distant fog. Zhang Sunchong couldn't help but gasp. Oh my God! Why are there so many people? Zhang Sun hurriedly climbed down the sentry post and pulled Zhang Feng, saying, Fengzi, there are more people at the bottom of the mountain than on top of the mountain. There are at least 1,000 people. What should we do? There are so many people. Can our academy fit all of them? When the others heard this, they were also shocked. They hurriedly gathered beside Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng frowned. However, there was not much worry in his eyes. This was the result that he wanted. It's just a few thousand people. It's not a big deal. Which school in the future doesn't have that many people? Zhang Feng glanced at Du Go and patted his shoulder, saying, Kid, do you know why I want to build a 3-story building? If we do it the way you said, even if there are 10 Shao mountains, it won't be able to fit so many people. Indeed, even the Imperial College of the Tang Dynasty only had a few people. At most, it could only hold about 100 people, alright? However, What about White Deer College? The college had not been built yet, but there were already so many people. What would happen after it was built? What would happen then? Just this scene alone was enough to shock the world. Not to mention after the college was opened. However, what should they do with so many people? What about the admission procedures? Fengzi, there are so many people. Are you going to accept all of them? I've observed for a while. Among these people, there are many who just want to make a living. You want these people too? That's right, Fengzi. Are you going to accept all of them? You have to think carefully. Even the Imperial College only has about 100 people in a year. You can't do it. Zhang Feng frowned slightly. Looking at the crowd at the entrance of the mountain, he could not help but come up with a brilliant plan. How about this? Dabing Li Gan and Tai Niu, I'll give you a heavy responsibility now. When they heard this, they hurriedly asked, what responsibility? The admission examination. Chapter 6:18. Admissions assessment. This thing was actually a test to see if they had a good foundation and reaction time. He couldn't possibly recruit some idiots, right? However, Zhang Feng also considered some factors. After all, many of these people were born as bumpkins, and their ancestors were illiterate. However, it didn't matter. As long as you knew a craft, it would be fine. There was no shortage of things to do here. After all, there was a shortage of kills and bricklayers. Now he had even opened a cement factory and he needed people to do that. However, if you said you didn't even know how to do these, then why did you make a hammer? As a poor man in his teens, even if you knew how to weave straw sandals, it meant that you had the ability to support yourself. However, if you didn't even know how to do this, then get lost. Lao Tzu didn't teach idiots and sluggards. This was Zhang Feng's principle. Under Zhang Feng's detailed explanation, the eyes of these people were shining. However, Cheng Chimo also made a constructive suggestion. Fengzi, what if there's someone like me who also has boundless strength? Look at that silly big guy. Damn, he's a talent. If he doesn't have strength, then it's really a waste of his tendons. Cheng Chimo pointed to a tan strong man and said. Zhang Feng glanced at that man and was a little surprised. He was 2 meters tall, wasn't he? So tall, you. Okay, why don't we ask him to come and try? Okay. You, that tan big guy, come here. Cheng Chimo pointed at the man and beckoned him with his finger. The man pointed at his own nose, and after confirming that he was the one being called, he walked out of the crowd under the envious gazes of the crowd. Then he bowed to Zhang Feng first. Then he bowed to Cheng Chimo and the others. I'm Gao Kan's greetings to the teacher and the devil grandfathers. Gao Kan. Zhang Feng was surprised. In the blink of an eye, he grinned as if he had picked up a treasure. What a high level. F***ck. A famous general under Li Ji. Mother ***ker. First he picked up Ma Zhou. Now he picked up another one. He even managed to get a military general? However, even though Zhang Feng was already dancing with joy in his heart, there was no trace of joy on his face. It wasn't that he wasn't happy, but his strong mental fortitude prevented him from revealing a trace of surprise. Ahem, Gao Kan, let me ask you, can you read? Gao Kan shook his head, and his tanned face couldn't help but blush. Then do you know any craft? Does eating count? Zhang Feng held back his patience and pointed to the handcart at the entrance of the mountain, as well as the bags of food that each weighed 100 pounds. He asked, since you can eat so much and are so strong, can you lift this up? Oh. Gao Kan hummed in acknowledgement. Then he walked towards the handcart. But just as he reached the handcart, he turned around and looked at Zhang Feng. He asked honestly, if I can lift it up, can I come here? Zhang Feng nodded. Cheng Chimo impatiently urged, why are you wasting time? Hurry up. Can't you see that there are so many people waiting behind? If you dare to ask one more question, this young master will tear your mouth apart. Gao Kan glanced at Cheng Chimo and smiled honestly. Then, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, he actually lifted the handcart up. Handcart. It was a handcart. Zhang Feng rubbed his eyes and counted the bags of food on the handcart. Those were the food prepared for the people on the mountain today. A total of 5 bags of food, and he lifted it up so easily? 500 pounds. This handcart was at least 100 pounds. How could he lift it up so easily? What kind of freaking monster was this? Not only Zhang Feng, but even Chang'an and the others were staring with their eyes wide open. The surrounding students who were preparing to enter the school couldn't help but gasp. Hiss. Oh my god, who is this big blockhead? I don't know. Damn it, did he grow up eating stones? Why is he so strong? What's the use of being strong? The school is a place to study and learn how to read. What's the use of being strong? Learning how to read? Hearing the exclamations of the crowd, Zhang Feng hurriedly rubbed his hands and asked him to put down the handcart. Okay, Gao can put it down. Put down the cart. When Gaoken heard that it was a cart of food, his eyes couldn't help but flash with excitement. He retracted his hand that was holding the axle and extended it toward Zhang Feng. Master teacher, I have been hungry for 3 days. If I put it down, can you give me a full meal? Zhang Feng's face darkened. He took a deep breath and thought about it. If he had this big blockhead as his follower, he wouldn't have to be afraid of Chang'an. Okay. I will give you enough food, okay? Okay. After getting the affirmation, Gaoken put down the handcart and followed Zhang Feng. He looked at him like this, which made Zhang Feng's hair stand. Old he, bring him to eat. After the meal, let him wait for me in my study room. After arranging Gaoken, Zhang Feng looked at those people again. His eyes couldn't help but emit a fiery glow. Talents like Ma Zhou and Gaoken had appeared. Then Hao Chujun and Li Yifu should be here too. Chapter 619. Zhang Feng was looking forward to it. Looking at the crowd, he sorted out his emotions and made his voice sound even more dignified. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that all of you wish to join the White Deer Institute. Of course, we will accept you, but we won't accept just anyone. There must be rules. And the reason why our White Deer Institute was able to obtain the recognition of His Majesty is precisely because we broke the barrier of convention. That's why we can stand proudly here. I, Zhang Feng, am fortunate enough to become the Chancellor of the White Deer Institute, so I have to follow the rules. Confucius once said, "You can't give up on books. In this world, there is no free food." Therefore, the first rule of entering the White Deer Institute is that you can either write, read, or know how to make a living. Otherwise, you can be like Gao Kansas. Not to mention lifting this cart. As long as you can lift 2 sacks of food, my White Deer Institute will accept you. However, if you can't even do this, then this construction site still needs manpower. You can treat it as if you're looking for a place to make a living. There will be enough food. What? What kind of rule is this? The imperial edict didn't say anything like this. Prince Zhang, why are you doing this? That's right. We are all poor people. How can we be literate? If we were literate, we wouldn't be. Bam. The moment Zhang Feng finished speaking, everyone who came out of the mountain gate was in an uproar, like a pot of boiling water. While they were chattering, Chang'an suddenly punched a log that was as thick as a rice bowl. Instantly, the log broke into 2 under everyone's horrified gazes. Chang'an imitated Zhang Feng's mannerisms. He put his hands behind his back and shouted pretentiously, "This is the rule. This is the rule here. If anyone doesn't follow the rules, this log will be their example. Now let's begin the registration." His act was perfect, but Li Chengqian and the others behind him stared straight at Chang'an's swollen right hand behind his back. They couldn't help but silently give him a thumbs up. Awesome. Awesome. That was awesome. In order to act cool, he even gave up his hand. And Chang'an's voice was enough to deter them. At this moment, everyone finally behaved themselves. Zhang Feng glanced at the crowd and left in a hurry. After all, this silly Gaoken still needed to be taught a good lesson. After Zhang Feng left, Li Chengqian and Du Go brought up a square couch and placed it at the entrance of the academy. Zhu Zi carefully waited on the side, grinding for Li Chengqian and Du Go. Ever since Zhu Zi and Go Zi followed Li Chengqian and Du Go, their image had changed drastically. This was especially true for Li Chengqian and Du Go. It was almost as if they were comparing themselves to each other, directly treating the 2 of them as page boys. This caused Zhang Feng to grit his teeth. At this time, Zhu Zi was wearing a green and white errand boy outfit, with 2 white silk ribbons tied around his head. With this outfit, he turned from a clay doll on the street into a handsome little errand boy. This was simply like a chicken turning into a phoenix. After the 2 of them set up their desks, Cheng Chimo, Zhang Sun Chong, and Wei Shiyu followed suit and set up 3 desks. However, they were all made of wooden planks. After all, the 3 of them didn't rely on their writing skills but on their skills. Behind the 3 of them, Cheng Chimo was actually following Steamed Bun. To others, this fellow would frown coldly, but to Steamed Bun he doted on her more than Steamed Bun's father, who was also Zhu Zi's father. At this time, she was eating malt candy and wearing a silk dress. Although she was only 8 years old, it could be seen that she was a beauty. At this time, Steamed Bun was also quite obedient. She kept calling Cheng Chimo brother Neo, which made Cheng Chimo's heart jump. Cheng Chimo hugged Steamed Bun with one hand and held a military book with the other as he shouted angrily, "If you have some strength, come here and fight with me. If you can make me feel pain or make me cry, then you pass. If you can't, then you have to carry 2 bags of food for me and run around the Shao Mountain. If you can't, then you have to teach me a military book." "That's right," Zhang Wuji said. "If you know how to cook, come here and register with me. If you know how to do business, come here." Wei Shiyu and Zhang Sun weren't so lucky. The 3 of them picked the good ones one by one. The 2 of them picked 2 strong young men who looked smart. In just a short while, White Deer College's enrollment process could be considered to have begun. After everyone pondered for a while, they obediently lined up in a long line under the intimidating sight of the wooden log and the angry glares of the fierce servants. "You, what's your name?" "Wang Erniu." "Can you read?" "I can read. If I want to write, I can only write my name." "All right, write 1 and pay 1 copper coin." Wang Erniu was taken aback. "Sir, didn't they say that it's free?" Li Chengqian was furious. "It's free? You think the ink and paper are free? You don't even have 1 copper coin. Do you think this is a charity hall? Scram if you don't have money." Wang Erniu's face turned green and white. At this moment, Hao Chujun blocked Wang Erniu and cupped his hands. "Brother, I'll pay this fellow's 1 copper coin." Li Chengqian looked at Hao Chujun in astonishment. Then he ticked Wang Erniu's name and pointed down MT. 1,000. "Did you see those houses being renovated when you went up the mountain? Take this to the manager and tell him you're going to register." Wang Erniu was taken aback. Li Chengqian roared impatiently. "Anyone who registers here must personally participate in the construction of their houses. This is also considered an entrance examination. If you can't even do it yourself, you'll be the scum of the Tang dynasty once you leave the academy. Those who want to enter White Deer College, listen up." Next, Wang Erniu was taken aback. Finally, he cupped his hands at Hao Chujun and left. Name: Hao Chujun of Anzhou. Chapter 620. Even if they only needed to register a name, and then take out the certificate issued by the official of the place where the household registration was located. Even so, it lasted from around noon all the way to the evening before it finally ended. At this time, Li Chengqian and the others looked at Gao Can, who was standing behind Zhang Feng like a wooden stake, and were speechless. They didn't know what Zhang Feng said to this thing, but it actually made him follow Zhang Feng wholeheartedly. Li Chengqian and the others looked at the 9-feet-tall Gao Can and couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. In the future, it would be impossible to abuse Zhang Feng again. This guy also learned to be smart. But this was not the point. The point was that this guy actually looked at the name on the registration book, and actually laughed wretchedly. Everyone couldn't help but watch it. Cheng Chimo even whispered something in Steamed Bun's ear. And then Steamed Bun actually ran over and said crisply, "Brother Fengzi, Brother Niu said that your smile is so wretched." Zhang Feng heard this and his face instantly twisted. Gao Can, who was standing behind Zhang Feng, glared and was about to beat Steamed Bun. Zhang Feng was so scared that he hurriedly blocked Gao Can, touched Steamed Bun's head and said, "You go and tell him that I said to let him pick up feces tomorrow, or I'll deduct his credits." PFFF. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, Iron Niu, you have nothing better to do. You dare to make such a joke with Fengzi. Now you've gone too far, right? Cheng Chimo looked at Zhang Feng with disdain and said lightly, "Steamed bun, your brother Fengzi asked you to pick up feces tomorrow. Are you going?" "No, brother Niu will pick." Steamed bun blinked his eyes and looked between Zhang Feng and Cheng Chimo. Then his answer made Cheng Chimo scared. Okay, you guys go back to sleep. Let's discuss what to do next." Zhang Feng was too lazy to say anything more. To be able to recruit Gao Kin today was simply picking up a treasure. This fellow was recorded in history as being ranked 5th in the late Tang Taizong period and the early Liji period. If he could recruit such a ferocious person as his subordinate and properly train him, he would be a great help to him in the future. What's more, Hao Chujun, Li Yifu, and the others were also here. How could he not be excited? Guzi, Zhuzi, and Steamed Bun had all left, but that hothead Gao Kin was still standing behind Zhang Feng, unmoved. Li Chengqian and the others also looked at him speechlessly. Seeing this, Zhang Feng curiously turned around and saw that this guy was still standing there. He said, "Gao Kin, go to sleep. If you don't sleep, go guard the door for me." "No, you said it. If you want me to stay close to you, then I will stay close to you." "Fine. Then you can stand." Zhang Feng was too lazy to speak, but he was also a little confused. Was this still the 5th-ranked general? How could this be an iron fool? But at this time, he couldn't care so much. He knocked on the roster and said, "How many people did you recruit today?" 1125 people. "I think there will be more later, but it shouldn't be as scary as today." "But Fengzi, with so many people, how do you want to handle it? If you teach alone, won't you be King tired to death? Do you want to invite old Xiaocai and Mr. Li Gang up here?" Li Chengqian put his hands on the table, his face solemn. With so many people, although all of them had joined the construction at the construction site, it was not a long-term solution. One day these things would be built, but what about after it was built? They had to teach, right? What to do? Zhang Feng coughed and said, "I just thought about this. The people we recruited today are very good. There are a few very good seedlings, such as Li Yifu, Lai Ji, and Hao Chujun. These guys need to be taken care of." Zhang Feng was silent for a moment, then looked at Cheng Chimo and the others and said, "Do you know something called military science?" "What? What's military science?" The few of them were confused. Li Chengqian frowned and asked, "Are you talking about studying military books? That stuff is not something the academy should. F***ck. Don't tell me you want to teach this stuff?" Li Chengqian seemed to have thought of something and asked in surprise. Zhang Feng nodded. "That's right. Now it's time to divide the subjects. I know you don't know what subjects are, and I can't be bothered to explain it to you. You will understand later. But there's one thing you have to remember. Since I have opened a unique academy, then I have to completely separate myself from these things. First, everyone must learn mathematics. De Bing, make something to memorize. When the time comes, we will divide the subjects." Du Go heard this and hurriedly took out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. Li Chengqian also helped to grind. At this moment, Zhang Feng said, "Physics and mathematics." Majored in mathematics, physics, and chemistry. Actually, these three can be grouped into one thing, and that's called science. However, mathematics is the foundation, and it's something that must be learned. As for science, only people at your level are qualified to learn it, or very talented people can come into contact with it. Otherwise, this thing can cause a big problem if it's not handled properly. Hence, we have to use our own people. There's also medicine, military science, business science, and technical science. As Zhang Feng spoke, he organized the subjects that needed to be learned in primary schools in the future, combined with the situation in the Tang dynasty, and then explained in detail. However, it took Zhang Feng 6 hours to explain all these things in detail. Li Chengqian and the others only felt dizzy. Du Go looked at the few of them and said, "Fengzi, can you say it again? I didn't hear it clearly just now." "I was just recording." Chapter 621. In fact, it wasn't that they didn't hear him clearly. They had already recorded it. How could they not hear him clearly? That was simply nonsense. However, These things were too unbelievable for him. They couldn't help but feel incredulous. Li Chengqian sorted out his thoughts, took a deep breath, and asked, Fengzi, we've heard of physics before. We also know about mathematics. But what is this chemistry you mentioned? What's the use of this stuff? And medicine? Is this the purpose of you inviting Dr. Sun Simiao up the mountain? Also military this stuff. Are you going to find the group of veterans from the reclining workshop to teach these students? Isn't this nonsense? These were too unbelievable. Not to mention other things, they all knew about business. In fact, it was the art of merchants. They knew this before. There was also this technical school. But military medicine and science, what the hell were these? It was too unbelievable. Even if you said that you were studying the 8 trigrams of Zhou Yi or something, it would still make sense. If you were studying something like Sun Tzu's Art of War, it would still make sense. But you directly said that it was military. Zhang Feng didn't care about this and knocked on the table. Do you still remember the matter of dealing with Tubo and the Turks? In fact, although this seems to be national policy, it's not completely true. This is actually military science. Sun Tzu's Art of War is actually military science. It doesn't include fighting and killing. Training to fight and kill is to see the overall quality of a soldier. Yes. I remember that I've told you before. I don't teach those who only know how to cut their throats with the radiographic films, nor do I teach those who only know how to talk on paper. I can't afford to lose face like that. What I want to teach is the kind of person who can be as awesome as Cheng Yaojin, Yu Qigong Li Jing, Qin Xiong, and Qin Shubao in the future. If it's an ordinary soldier, if I, Zhang Feng, can teach such a person, Lao Tzu will bang his head against the wall. They were shocked. Finally, they remembered what Zhang Feng said to them that night. He wanted Cheng Chimo to be an invincible heavy cavalry. Wei Shi wanted to be an assassin without leaving a trace. And Zhang Sun. That goes without saying. Previously, after the appearance of the unbreakable shield and the unbreakable spear, as well as the recent events, they had really forgotten about it. But now that Zhang Feng said it again, everyone couldn't help but be shocked again. What was Zhang Feng doing? He was King teaching them real skills. No. Li Chengqian slammed the table in excitement. He stood up and roared. This gave Zhang Feng a big fright. What? Are you crazy? Li Chengqian didn't pay attention to Zhang Feng's words. Instead, he anxiously said, Fengzi, if you only handed this matter to Tai Niu and us, then we wouldn't have anything to say. We are brothers, but you want to spread this information? Do you know that His Majesty has issued a decree forbidding the private distribution of military books? Do you know the reason? How could Zhang Feng not know? You don't have to worry about that. I know what you're worried about. It's nothing more than teaching some ungrateful brats that will rebel. Sure. Li Chengqian hurriedly covered Zhang Feng's mouth. Zhang Feng waved his hand indifferently. I've thought about this matter many times. Look at the current situation of the Tang dynasty. Tubo, Turks for example, Shirwei Goguryeo, and so on are all around. As for what I teach, don't worry. I'll only teach the core knowledge to you. As for the rest, other than the academy, it's up to His Majesty to use them. These are not things that we need to worry about. But when it comes to selecting people, you'd better pay more attention. Do you know why I made mathematics the main course, medicine the auxiliary course, and poetry, books, etiquette, and so on as the auxiliary course? It's mainly to build their character. In fact, people are not bad at the beginning. It's only later that they'll be slowly driven by the interests and the wildness in their hearts. To teach military scholars, you must pass this test first. So you can rest assured. However, how could Li Chengqian be so assured? But he believed in Zhang Feng. In his hands, even he, the crown prince, was obedient, not to mention those bastards. If it really didn't work, thinking of this, Li Chengqian could not help but have a murderous look in his eyes. Just as Zhang Feng said, if they were not used by him, he would kill them. By the way, when will the physics class you mentioned start? And chemistry, what the hell is that? Is it more powerful than physics? Dugo had been thinking about physics all this time. At this time, when Li Chengqian finished speaking, he hurried before Cheng Chimo and the others and asked this question. Zhang Feng could not help but be amused. Actually, it's not a big deal. Do you know why I set up a research institute? What do you think the research institute is going to do? Isn't it just ships and cars that can travel millions of miles in a day? Li Chengqian said so subconsciously. However, Zhang Feng shook his head. Wrong. What do you think the Tang dynasty lacks the most now? Food. Li Chengqian, Du Go, Chengchumo, and the others said in unison. Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. If I say that if this science of mine is developed, the Tang dynasty will not lack food. Even if it's a dry day, it will still be able to make the people full of food. Would you believe me? Why don't you guys worry about it? You even say it's a good thing. Sigh. Zhang Feng scampered off amidst his nagging. All that was left was a group of people in a mess. What's wrong with Fengzi? If he wants books, just ask for books. Why did he have to make it sound so fresh and refined? Li Chengqian looked at Zhang Feng in disdain. Isn't this how he's always done things? Sigh. He's just pretending to be cool. It's really fresh and refined. Let's go to sleep. I want to ask my father for books. But speaking of which, De Bing. Without waiting for Li Chengqian to speak, Du Go clutched his stomach and screamed. Ouch! My stomach hurts. Everyone, take your time to chat. I'm leaving. Li Chengqian was speechless. He looked at Cheng Chimo, then at Zhang Sun and Wei Shuyu. Well, it seems that we'll have to rely on ourselves for this matter. The rest is easy. I can get some things from my place. However, there are still some strange books that I'll need the three of you to deal with. That shouldn't be a problem, right? What could they say? The Crown Prince had already spoken. Even if there was a problem, there would be no problem. Who could compare with Du Go? Ching Chimo did not mind. Anyway, although there were many books in his house, they were, in fact, obtained by his father to put up a front. As for the real good books, it would be up to Wei Shuyu to do it. This guy definitely had more strange books in his house than anyone else. Li Chengqian slapped his forehead, finally remembering an important matter. Worm, I remember that you have a book Wei Liaozi at home, right? When Zhang Sun heard this, his face could not help but turn a little ugly. I do have it, but this thing is my father's favorite. It's not easy for me to take it. It's fine. Just tell him that Fengzi wants it, and he'll take it out for you himself. There's also the Book of Jin, the Three Lu, and the Six Tao. Have you heard of these things? Li Chengqian racked his brains and asked one by one. He had to make use of this good opportunity to get all these good things out. Even he only knew about these things when he chatted with Li Gang in the past. He really did not know where these things could be found. If he could make use of this opportunity to get his hands on them, then his life would not be in vain. As for Du Go, who was hiding outside the door, actually did not go to the outhouse because of a stomachache. When he heard that there were so many good books, how could he sit still? He hurriedly said, I know about this. Previously, when I was at the bad guy's house, I happened to hear him mention a book called the Six Tao. It would have been better if he did not say anything. Once he said that, Li Chengqian and the others could not help but laugh evilly. I'll leave the rest of the books to you. It's your fault for having so many books. Chapter 623. The next morning. After saying goodbye to everyone, Zhang Feng went to Chang'an City leisurely on a roller coaster. Although Li Chengqian tried to persuade him to sit in the great scholar's sedan chair or ride his white horse, Zhang Feng didn't know how to ride a horse. Besides, he didn't want to be too conspicuous. At this time, some small vendors and stalls had already been developed at the foot of the ruined mountain. Even the traveling merchants had built a simple shed with trees and started to do small business in it. Not to mention that the business was not in Chang'an City. For example, the barbecue cellar. Now the barbecue was mainly chicken and duck meat, which suited the taste of the hard work on the mountain. Even Cheng Chumo and the others went down the mountain from time to time to make some barbecue and drink a big barrel of beer. Then they went up the mountain while humming a song. Not to mention the common people. After a day's work, they went to drink a bamboo tube of beer at night. Although they couldn't afford the barbecue, At least they could smell the fragrance and drink the beer. At this time, standing outside Chang'an City, looking at the modeled city wall, Zhang Feng had the illusion that he saw the city wall of Chang'an City in the future. Sparse people were going in and out listlessly. On the way, he saw some teenagers who were excited to go to the academy. Entering Chang'an City, the disaster victims in the city were obviously reduced a lot. Zhang Feng was a little puzzled. It seemed that the disaster was under control. But why were more and more people gathering on the mountain? It was not a good sign if it went on like this. Although there were 30,000 dawn of grain, the original 5 or 6,000 people, plus the current 1,200 people, were almost 10,000 people. With so many people, the 30,000 dawn of grain would be used up. No, he had to find a way. The streets of Chang'an were very clean. Most of them were peddlers, but the pedestrians on the street were much less. At the gate of the treasury, there were still some refugees waiting to be given porridge, but there were not as many as before. Along the way, Zhang Feng was also thinking about how to get rid of this thing. After all, it would be a big problem if he just sat there and did nothing. Just as Zhang Feng entered Tong Huifang, he was spotted by a few women. Yo, Fengzi, you're back? Everyone, come out quickly. Quietly, Fengzi is back. Fengzi, you're back. Come out. The originally quiet Tonghui Lane was filled with shouts. Gradually, people came out of their homes and stood on both sides of the road, looking at Zhang Feng. Instead, he left him a straight path to the tavern. Zhang Feng was speechless. Was it necessary? Wasn't it just a trip out? Why were they all so polite? Zhang Feng could only grin like an idiot as he clasped his fists and thanked everyone. With great difficulty, he finally made it to the tavern. Zhang Feng finally let out a deep sigh of relief. He took a piece of smoked bacon and threw it into the pot to wash it. Then, he set up the firewood and took out a jar of good wine. He lay down on the recliner and swayed gently. It was still more comfortable to be at home. However, just as Zhang Feng cooked up 3 dishes and was about to have a good drink before going to look for Lao Li, someone knocked on the door of the tavern. Brother Zhang Feng? Brother Zhang Feng? Who is it? It's me, Lao Feng. Lao Feng? Zhang Feng was a little surprised. However, he still put down the wine jar and opened the door of the tavern. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Feng Xianling squinting and stroking his beard while sizing up Zhang Feng. Beside him was an old man in a purple robe with white beard and gray hair. His face was ruddy, but his nose was extremely red as if he had been scalded by boiling water. The old man looked a little strange, but his arrogant aura was emitted from the inside out. It was impossible to fake it. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Oh, Lao Feng is here? This is... Feng Xianling stroked his white beard and glanced at Zhang Feng mysteriously. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he pushed Zhang Feng away a little and respectfully invited that person into the tavern. As soon as he entered the tavern, that person saw the poem on the wall. He couldn't help but look a little awe-inspiring. This, young friend, is this the poem you wrote? Zhang Feng couldn't figure out who this person was, so he could only nod. I was drunk and randomly drew it. I didn't have time to clean it up. Excuse me, sir. The old man's face became serious. Such a good poem. If you clean it up, wouldn't it be a pity? It's good like this. It added some liveliness to your tavern. Toasting, don't stop drinking. This is the poetry that a tavern should have. Good poem, good poem. Zhang Feng was also puzzled. The mystery of Lao Feng and the old man made him somewhat unable to figure out the old man's background. Could it be the emperor? No. Could he invite Li Shimin? Moreover, Li Shimin wasn't that old, okay? Although Zhang Feng hadn't seen Li Shimin, he still remembered this history. At this time, Li Shimin was about 40 years old. If you say he was Li Yuan, he didn't look like it. Moreover, if these two went out of the palace, wouldn't it shake the heaven and earth? How could it be so calm? No. This person wasn't these two at all. Involuntarily, Zhang Feng couldn't help but ask, "Excuse me, sir, you are? I'm Yu Shernan." Chapter 624. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He was completely dumbfounded. Yu Shernan? This master was a renowned literary giant of the Great Tang, a great Confucian of his generation. Moreover, he was one of Li Shimon's favored men. Moreover, he was highly accomplished in politics, poetry, and calligraphy, especially the Beitang Book of Banknotes, which was a great work. To be able to leave behind a work of authorship in this era, how awesome was that? Just think about it. But now? I can't believe I actually saw a living person in my tavern. After a moment of surprise, Zhang Feng hurriedly wiped his hands on his clothes and habitually reached out to shake Yu Shernan's hand. However, after reaching out, he realized that this wasn't a proper etiquette at all. He hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. Student Zhang Feng is here to pay respects to Senior Bo Shi. Generally, when people saw Yu Shernan, they would respectfully address him as the great Confucian scholar. But Zhang Feng was different. Who asked Lao Li to be so capable that he even got him the identity of a great Confucian scholar. Unbeknownst to Li Chengqian, Zhang Fengxi's poetry collection had passed through old Li's hands. Afterwards, he had shown it to Yu Shernan, Chu Suiliang, and the others. Then, under the witness of these four masters, Zhang Feng became a great Confucian scholar without anyone noticing. Moreover, the inscribed board of the Chang, an academy, had the signatures of these four masters. This thing was a golden signboard in the Tang dynasty. Generally, if a person wanted to become a great Confucian scholar, at least 10 great Confucian scholars had to jointly recommend him, and then he had to make a backup record in the Imperial College, the Ministry of Personnel, and the Supreme Court. Only then would the Imperial Court issue a document. But that was not all. You also had to be recognized by the Shandong gentry. You had to get a great Confucian jade plate issued by the Shandong gentry, which was equivalent to an identity card. Don't ask why the Shandong gentry had such qualifications, because they considered themselves as the descendants of Confucius. Who in the world dared to offend them? Who would dare to question him? At this moment, Yu Shernan also accepted Zhang Feng's bow. This was the etiquette of a junior greeting an elder, and not the etiquette of a student greeting a teacher. If it was someone else, it wouldn't be appropriate, but Zhang Feng was different. On one hand, he was a junior. On the other hand, he was recommended by Yu Shernan. This was equivalent to being Yu Shernan's student. At this moment, Yu Shernan stroked his beard and personally helped Zhang Feng up. Feng Xianling had been eating by himself for a long time. I say, the two of you, don't just stand there. Brother Bo Shi, this is Zhang Feng's signature dish and his signature wine. You won't be able to drink it anywhere else in the Tang dynasty except here. As soon as he heard about the wine, Yu Shernan's eyes couldn't help but be attracted by Feng Xuanling's wine bowl. He ignored Zhang Feng, sat down, grabbed a piece of braised bacon, and urged Feng Xianling to pour wine for him. A bowl of wine went down his stomach. Yu Shernan's red nose was like a piece of red-hot iron, so red that it was shining. Good wine. This is good wine. Ha ha ha, come on little friend Zhang Feng, sit down, let's talk while eating. Okay. Zhang Feng agreed. He was about to say a word of thanks, but he held back for a long time and couldn't say it. The problem was, this was his pub, wasn't it? Zhang Feng could only sit down embarrassedly and eat and drink by himself. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, the 3 of them drank 5 large jugs of 15% white wine. Only then did they feel dizzy, touched their stomachs, and burped. Little friend Zhang Feng, you're going to treat this wine like a treasure? Yu Shernan said very bluntly. What he meant was, you're going to hide something good. You don't want people to know? However, Zhang Feng knew that if this sentence was said by Lao Li, it must be directed at the wine. However, this was Yu Shernan. How could he not think about what he said? Zhang Feng thought for a while, then said, Mr. Bo Shi, you're joking. Although this wine is good, it's precious because it's rare. I also know that it's better to enjoy it with others than to enjoy it alone. However, this wine needs people who understand it to taste it. Those who only know how to drink like a donkey won't understand the true essence of this wine. Yu Shernan smiled. Little friend, are you saying that White Deer College is also like this? No. Mr. Bo Shi, you're joking. The college is a place to educate people. How can it be compared to wine? But do you know that the path of a teacher is not easily taught? I know. However, although I've waived the entrance fee, Every student has to work at White Deer College to pay off their debts. Hearing this, Yushernan's interest was piqued. Then tell me, how do you intend to pay off your debts? How come I've heard that you're using work as a substitute? Zhang Feng knew that this old man was here to ask about this. After all, the stubborn scholars of this era all believed that books should not be studied for nothing. This was also the reason why scholars in this era were superior to others. However, Zhang Feng did the opposite. He directly let everyone have books to study. Wasn't this a huge taboo? However, the reason why no one came to find trouble with him was mainly because of Zhang Feng's unimaginable philosophy of running a school, and those incomparably complicated subjects. Everyone thought that he was just fooling around. On the other hand, this college, in the eyes of the people at the top, was actually just a toy for the crown prince. Chapter 625. Zhang Feng said after pondering for a while. Mr. Bosher, may I ask how many literati there are in this world? Less than one level. Zhang Feng asked. Then may I ask if these people can pick up their swords and go to the battlefield to kill the enemy when the country is in danger? Yushern'an thought for a while, and his face became serious. No. Well, may I ask Mr. Bosher, why should the literati be one level higher than the common people? Why is that? In this time of famine, it is the literati who suffer. Can what we learn from books help the world? When the country is in danger, can these literati protect the country? Yushernan's face changed. He sighed and said, No. Zhang Feng also sighed. He pointed out the window and said, The literati of the Tang dynasty occupy one level, but they have a salary every day. The poor people can only face the yellow soil. They are like peonies surrounded by the common people. Think about it, if a garden is full of weeds and yellow soil, won't it be beautiful? If there are not only peonies in this garden, but also other flowers and plants to serve as a foil, then what would it be? This is a garden of flowers. The former is like the current situation of the Tang dynasty. I am not talented, but I can't bear to see that there is only one peony left in this beautiful picture of mountains and rivers. Therefore, I use my own strength in this way to add a little green to this garden. Yushernan's entire body turned solemn. And so did Fang Xianling. In fact, he came to Zhang Feng's place today, because he was pestered by Yushernan. In Li Shimon's study, Yushernan accidentally learned about Zhang Feng's calligraphy, and found a poem that didn't belong to the collection in Fang Xuanling's study. He couldn't help but be interested. But he didn't know. The poetry collection that Li Shimon had shown him was only half of it. To be precise, it was not even half of it. It was just that Li Shimon picked out a few poems, and didn't let him finish reading them. However, all of this had shocked Yushernan, which was why he had strongly recommended Zhang Feng. But now Yushernan had a deeper understanding of Zhang Feng. This guy looked a little rash, but when he said that, Yushernan really saw a different side of him, especially Zhang Feng's view of the current Tang dynasty. It was not something that a person of his age could understand. Little friend Zhang Feng, you're right, but people are divided into different grades and ranks. This is something that has existed since ancient times. Don't tell me that you think this is wrong. When people are just born, there is not much difference. As long as they have enough to eat and wear, it is enough. The difference is what happens after they have spiritual wisdom. At this time, the differences between people will be revealed one by one. Some people, with a teacher taking the lead, are like an old cow teaching a calf to plow the field and pull a cart. With some teaching, they will make faster progress. Without teaching, they will naturally make slower progress, and even live in ignorance for the rest of their lives. Without considering a monster like you, the difference between those who have read books and those who have not can be reflected. Thus, the division of the upper and lower, the division of the 3 grades and 9 ranks, and the division of the social class came out. In ancient times, people practiced slash and burn cultivation, and it was difficult for them to survive. That was why there were groups of people for warmth and ethnic groups. After living in groups, they got more food, and there was trade between ethnic groups. And this led to a few things. Some people got more, and some people got less. Therefore, there was selfishness. That was why there was everything after that. At birth, people are good by nature, Their natures are similar, but their habits are different. Yu Shinan said this very slowly, and the essence in his eyes made Zhang Feng a little shocked. But this was a matter of philosophy. Zhang Feng nodded and said, I know what Mr. Bosher means, but just now you said that people are good by nature. Their natures are similar, but their habits are different. That is to say, everyone should be equal. Wrong. Yu Shinan waved his hand. He sighed and said, If that is the case, it is really beautiful, but do you think it is possible? Yes. The reason why there is a division of the upper and lower, and the division of the social class, is to better survive. If there is no one who centralizes power and controls power, then who in the world will have a good life? Take the three kingdoms as an example. How do you think the people lived in troubled times? Zhang Feng also fell silent. Yu Shinan said, Boy, I know what you are thinking. You just want to create more useful people for the Tang dynasty. This is a good idea, and I support your approach. But you have to remember one thing, and that is nature. Don't forget nature, otherwise. Zhang Feng's face was solemn. How could he not know what Yu Shinan meant at this time? He couldn't help but take a deep breath and bow. This student has learned something. Ha ha ha, you are worth teaching. Brother Feng, you've won. Yu Shinan laughed heartily. Then he waved his hand and motioned for Zhang Feng to get the wine. Zhang Feng fetched a jar of wine and personally poured it for Yu Shinan. However, at this time, Zhang Feng suddenly thought of something. Chapter 626. Didn't he go down the mountain because of this matter? Now that this person had taken the initiative to come knocking on his door, it seemed that this collection of poems was still useful. Tomorrow, he would have to distribute all the poems, so that those great scholars would take the initiative to come knocking on his door. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Thinking of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help sighing with a sad face. Old Mr. Bosher, there's something you don't know. Although I have the intention of teaching and educating people, I can't cook without rice. Feng Xianling glanced at Zhang Feng. How could he not know what this guy was up to? But he couldn't say anything. After all, he knew the situation on the mountain. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng's appearance, Feng Xianling could only help him and said, Brother Bosher, you didn't go to Feng Zi's place, but my son has been there for more than 10 days. The last time he came back, I heard that there were basically shacks there. You don't know, right? This guy emptied his family's property in exchange for 20,000 don of grain. Without his 20,000 don of grain, the price of grain in Chang'an city would be 10 times higher. Hearing this, Yu Shinan couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng in surprise. He stroked his beard and nodded. That's right. Practice what you learn and apply it. This is my role model for scholars. Don't worry, if you have any difficulties, just tell the old man. Although the old man isn't as magnanimous as you, and doesn't have 20,000 don of grain, there are many students from the old man. When the time comes, I'll write a letter to ask them to help the academy, and also show my sincerity. Hearing this, Zhang Feng hurried to the left. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Bosher. Yu Shinan laughed heartily. The three of them drank a cup of wine, and saw that Zhang Feng was still frowning. Yu Shinan asked again. It seems that you have something that you can't tell me? Of course. And it was a big problem. Hearing this, Zhang Feng sighed again and nodded. Yu Shinan narrowed his eyes. Let's hear it. The old man wants to see who is so bold as to go against the academy issued by the emperor's imperial edict. Don't worry, old man will take care of this matter for you. Tell me, what exactly? Old Mr. Bosher, this isn't a matter of who's against you. Like I said before, I can't cook without rice. Yu Shinan put down a piece of bacon in surprise and asked, Tell me about it. Seeing that Yu Shinan had taken the bait, Zhang Feng said, Everything is going well in the academy. In the past few days, we have accepted almost 1,000 students. If we count according to the number of students who have come to the academy in the past few days, it is estimated that there will be about 5,000 students. Yu Shinan couldn't help but cry out in alarm. So many people? What are you trying to do? Zhang Feng spread his hands. As this brat said, it's precisely to add some color to the Great Tang's flower scroll. Moreover, I've opened up many subjects. which is why so many of these poor people are flooding into my academy. I know what you are worried about. Yes, my academy does have a lot of people. However, only a few of them may soar to the sky, but what about the rest? Although my academy is not like the Imperial College, where some people are selected from the root, the people who can graduate from my academy can basically escape from poverty. And the key lies in the subjects that I have set up. Yu Shinan heaved a sigh. In fact, Yu Shinan had long heard of Zhang Feng's unimaginable teaching philosophy. To be honest, in the beginning, Yu Shinan really didn't care about such things. He could find an experienced teacher in the market and learn for 3 to 5 years. Then he could reach a higher level and earn some money to support his family. Why did he have to come here? But when Zhang Feng mentioned the picture scroll, Yu Shinan couldn't help but accept Zhang Feng's idea. However, 5,000 people. One could imagine how much effort it would take to nurture all these people. If it was him, he wouldn't do it. However, the so-called subjects still aroused Yu Shinan's interest. Young friend, there are so many people. Are you sure they are all attracted by your subjects? That's what the old man couldn't figure out. In this academy, which one doesn't strive for excellence? It's easy for people like you to make up the numbers. Seeing that Yu Shinan was slowly taking the bait, Zhang Feng said, Mr. Bosher, although 5,000 people are a lot, it's still too little for the current Tang dynasty. I urgently hope that if there are 50,000 people, or even 500,000 people who can read, then the Tang dynasty can really be prosperous and the people can live in peace. What do you mean? It's very simple. Look at the current situation of the Tang dynasty. Basically, the trade and commerce has crossed Lingnan, Jinla, Tubo Turks and other countries. But this is only a small number of people. And among these people, who can really understand some exquisite trade. Besides, the best and most popular things in the Tang dynasty are tea leaves, silk and ceramics. But these things are basically in the hands of a small number of people. Think about it. When the time comes, the Tang dynasty is bound to start the age of navigation. At that time, how can these little things meet the needs of the foreign people? How can the Tang dynasty really become a prosperous country? So there's only one word. The Tang dynasty is poor. Chapter 6:27. Yu Shinan was a little confused. What this kid said was wrong. Everything he said was correct. Basically, there was one thing in many things nowadays, and that was the wine. If everyone could open up this kind of brewing technique, wouldn't everyone be able to live a good life? But it was easier said than done. Could it be that this kid wanted to? Kid, are you saying that you're going to hand them all over the place in your academy? And the forging technique of the invulnerable shield? And the invincible spear that you mentioned before? Yes. Zhang Feng slammed the table, and then picked up his wine glass and clinked it with Yu Shinan and Fang Xianling. Then he said, Actually, old Fang knows my plan. Brother Bashi, you don't know yet, right? Let me tell you a secret. Don't tell anyone else. Seeing Zhang Feng pull him up, Fang Xianling couldn't continue sitting there. He whispered in Yu Shinan's ear, You should have heard of this thing called the mysterious scripture, right? This kid knows this stuff. Moreover, it is said that Mozi and Lu Ban comprehended part of it, and that's why they were able to comprehend that kind of strange skill. You don't know that the previous strategy against the Turkic Tubo and the other countries, and the lifting of the blockade at Guanlong, were all made by this kid. Yu Shinan couldn't help but think highly of Zhang Feng again. You mean this thing was made by this kid? Fang Xianling glanced at Zhang Feng and said, Not only that, the cooperative and the fine salt that you praised so much were also made by this kid. What? This time, Yu Shinan finally couldn't sit still. He had always thought that this was made by the emperor and several state dukes. But he didn't know that these things, from politics to national policy to business, were all made by this kid. He finally understood why Li Shimin and the others respected Zhang Feng so much. Thinking of this, Yu Shinan stared at Zhang Feng and asked, If that's the case, then the beer and barbecue on the market were all made by you? Zhang Feng shrugged. Not only that, your favorite bone-strengthening powder was also made by this kid. Fang Xianling directly told Yu Shinan everything that had happened. Yu Shinan was so shocked that his mind was in chaos. The strategic planning of the nation, the things in the business world, and the lewd tricks, all of these were created by this kid? Was he even human? How was this possible? He couldn't link all of this to Zhang Feng. If it weren't for Feng Xuanling's words today, he would have thought that the locust-controlling stuff and the Nyang bone-strengthening powder were all Sun Simiao's doing. Right. Speaking of the locust-controlling stuff, it seemed that this kid was also the one who made it. Otherwise, if he had a way, Dr. Sun wouldn't have hidden it for so long. And there would be rumors about it in the outside world. What kind of freak was this kid? Had he really read that amazing scripture? Su Rian and the others had never seen that amazing scripture, but this thing had been widely circulated. At that time, it was rumored that Confucius got the amazing scripture and created the Book of Songs. Later, Mencius, Lao Tzu, and the others became the greatest Confucian scholars one after another. After that, although this amazing scripture was widely circulated, it had never appeared in the world again. Yu Shinan couldn't help but feel a little restless at this time. Who wouldn't read the amazing scripture? My young friend, what are the subjects in your academy? Finally, Yu Shinan asked the question in his heart. Hearing that, Zhang Feng said, in reply to Mr. Bosher, my White Deer College's main subjects are the 3-character classic, the Book of Songs, and mathematics. Poems, books, etiquette, and other things are supplementary. Among them, there are physics and chemistry. These things are the foundation of my academy, so only a very small number of amazing geniuses are qualified to sign contracts and study them. And among them, it includes the production and research of the textile machine that can be controlled and weaved day and night. There's also the research of the stainless steel, which is to make an impenetrable shield and an invincible spear. You should have heard that Old Chen is setting up a car factory and a shipyard. These are the most sophisticated things. When the time comes, they will be researched in a place that I name the Research Institute. The others can also learn some basic things. There are also military studies, medical studies, business studies, forging, manufacturing, brewing, and other professions. Finally, I will temporarily set up 3 factories on Xiao Mountain. One is a steel factory that specializes in mass production of shields, spears, crossbows, and so on. Another one specializes in brewing the tires of iron carriages and war chariots. The last one is the textile factory I mentioned just now. On one hand, it's to provide them with a lucrative career. And the other reason? It's also because they are poor. If you want to run this big academy, you will need a huge amount of money, so Zhang Feng said everything that he wanted to say in an eloquent manner. However, he didn't explain what those subjects were. However, business studies, medical studies, and other skills were nothing more than craftsmen. Yu Shinan knew a little about them. Not to mention the skills of a chef. He had tasted Zhang Feng's skills when he was in the palace. He also knew a little about the brewing industry. However, there were only 4 subjects. He couldn't understand. Chapter 628. Little friend Zhang Feng, this old man knows about mathematics. I've also seen it in Lao Li's house. However, this old man still doesn't understand physics, let alone chemistry. Can you explain it to this old man in detail? Yu Shinan's curiosity was piqued. He knew a little about physics, as well as the magical division and multiplication table. He also learned some things from his conversation with Du Ruhui. Du Ruhui, who mastered this thing, was actually able to handle the complicated matters of food distribution, registration, storage, and so on. How shocking was this? If it was an ordinary person, facing thousands of people coming to buy food or exchange food every day, wouldn't it take dozens of people to handle it? This could not help but highlight the power of mathematics. But what was physics? Although he had heard of it, what he heard was definitely different from what Zhang Feng said. Zhang Feng also knew that Yu Shinan would ask this. He deliberately dragged it out and said, Old man Bosher, actually this is the highest level of mathematics. For example, if an illiterate person doesn't even know how to read, how can he learn the Book of Songs? However, when Zhang Feng saw the displeasure on Yu Shinan's face, he hurriedly said, the so-called physics is actually studying something. For example, how to use the power of nature to transport water to a mountain instead of using manpower. Also, how to make a caddy of iron and a caddy of cotton fall from a high place at the same time and land at the same time, etc. These are all more profound things. They all require the foundation of mathematics to be able to calculate things. Isn't this what the fraud is studying? Yu Shurnan instantly lost interest. What about chemistry? What's that? Zhang Feng was a little speechless. At this moment, he did not know how to explain it to Yu Shurnan. There was no way to explain it. How to explain it? After thinking for a while, Zhang Feng said, "Do you still remember the thing I mentioned just now? My research institute is to study how to let the people eat their fill, wear warm clothes, and have a warehouse full of food. Also about the ship. Oh right, old Feng, have you told this to Mr. Bosher?" Feng Xianling shook his head. "I haven't told him yet. This thing hasn't been done yet. How can I tell him? But now that you've said it, I'll tell him, okay?" Feng Xianling pursed his lips and told Yu Shurnan everything about the shipyard, the Sea Silk Road, and the car factory. Yu Shurnan was dumbfounded. Especially the kind of iron ship that didn't need manpower to paddle, and could move the ship. What kind of thing was that? This was something he had never heard of. What was this? This was the real lewd trick. Compared with the craftsmen who called themselves strange masters, if this thing was really built, the Tang dynasty would really enter the golden age. Plus, there would be endless food, those looms, and the invincible spears and crossbows. Although Yu Shurnan did not agree with war, the foundation of a country was its military. If there was no strong military, how could the safety of the people be guaranteed? Zhang Feng, this brat, simply included everything from military, to business, to agriculture. Yu Shurnan did not dare to think about it. He hurriedly asked, "Young friend, what you said, is it chemistry?" "Yes. These things, whether it's physics or chemistry, are all called science. But it's still too early to talk about these things. You can just think of it as fun. This thing still needs time to be revealed." People in this era did not understand these things at all. They did not even have the basic common sense of life. If you said too much, people would only think you were crazy. But the reason why Zhang Feng told Yu Shurnan at this time was that this guy was the most representative Confucian scholar of the Tang dynasty. His academy needed such a person to hold the fort. Otherwise, Zhang Feng would not have bothered to say these things. After all, if he said it too early, people would only take it as a book. Only when he said it at the right time could it have an unexpected effect. Yu Shurnan also understood Zhang Feng's meaning. He nodded and said, "Don't worry. I understand what you said. But, what's the matter with the military? Could it be that you want to train soldiers?" This was also what Yu Shurnan was most puzzled about. Compared to science, that stuff was like a divine object that couldn't be found anywhere. But what about military? He instantly thought of the dirty scene in the garrison camp outside Chang'an city. This was simply like the difference between heaven and earth. How could it be possible to combine these two things that were originally completely unrelated? Moreover, it was in White Deer Academy? In fact, the military was also the purpose of Feng Xuanling's visit today. He was very worried that once this thing was revealed, it would inevitably cause ripples in the imperial court. At that time, it would not be a simple problem of the academy, but a political problem. Feng Xianling patted Zhang Feng's shoulder with a serious face and asked, "Fengzi, you have to think about it. Once this military course is revealed, do you know what the consequences will be? And military studies, isn't it just reading books? Could it be that you want everyone in White Deer Academy to study the art of war?" Chapter 629. Not to mention Yu Shurnan. Even Du Ruhui couldn't help but worry. The military and the academy had always been at odds with each other. Otherwise, the civil and military officials wouldn't have fought against each other in the cottage. But what was Zhang Feng trying to do now? Was he trying to combine the two into one? How was this possible? There was always a taboo for soldiers, and that was to be involved in politics. It was the same for politicians. But what Zhang Feng was doing now wasn't it? The two of them didn't dare to think further. That was why Feng Xuanling's expression suddenly changed. He was worried that if the imperial court knew that Zhang Feng's White Deer College was like this, it would become the target of the entire Tang dynasty. At that time, even if the emperor wanted to resist, it would be impossible. But Zhang Feng didn't seem to be worried about this. Instead, he waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about this, Mr. Bosher. Old Feng, you can rest assured. Do you think I'm stupid? How can I teach this to just anyone? Same old rules. To put it bluntly, this thing isn't made for ordinary people. Do you think this thing is made for ordinary people? Wrong. I made this thing for people who are prepared, like Tai Niu and the other extremely talented people." Feng Xianling seemed to understand, but Yu Shinan really didn't. Actually, from the very beginning, when he heard these brats talk about an impenetrable shield and an invincible spear, he had always felt a faint sense of worry. If you said that this thing was serious, it was really a serious problem. If you said that it wasn't serious, it wasn't a problem at all. Just as Zhang Feng said, Cheng Chimo and the others were born in the military. Take Wei Zheng's son, Wei Shiyu and Feng Yai for example. At this time, they were all holding important positions. But which hot-blooded youngster wouldn't be attracted to studying or practicing martial arts? At this moment, Zhang Feng also gave an answer. Some people are obsessed with one thing the moment they are born. Or maybe they were influenced by their parents and chose their own path. Or maybe they were inspired by the heroes in the streets and yearned for the heroism of soldiers on the battlefield. And there are even more people who are addicted to books, unable to extricate themselves. For example, dabbing. Old Feng, you should be able to understand why he is so obsessed with books, right? You're always running around outside, doing housework, and even working hard outside. When you return home, you'll pressure and criticize them. You must stand out. Of course, I'm not saying that your concern is wrong. It's just that you've been instilling things into your son for a long time. Have you ever thought about your son? As the saying goes, one is marked by the company one keeps. In the long run, their character will be determined from a young age. And my White Deer College can solve this problem from the root. First, from the moment you enter the college, if you don't have the ability, you should build a shelter for yourself. Lao Tzu doesn't want such a bookworm. The other type of person is the arrogant type. Lao Tzu will grind them until they don't even have the courage to raise their heads. This is a form of training. I once read a sentence in a book. A flower in a greenhouse will never be able to withstand the wind and rain. On the contrary, a person who has been exposed to the wind and rain for a long time will desperately want to climb up. What I want to do is to let the flower in the greenhouse have some time to grow. As for the person who has been exposed to the wind and rain for a long time, I will suppress the desire in his heart. So, young friend, you mean? Bosher finally couldn't take it anymore. Although what this brat said was right, but this was really long-winded. He couldn't take it anymore. Everything Zhang Feng said seemed to have no basis, but it was just right, especially the sentence, "One is marked by the company one keeps." This was something that even the great Confucian scholars of this era couldn't fully understand. He could actually say something like that. Yu Shinan couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for him. As for the military concept that Zhang Feng talked about, Yu Shinan also started to look forward to it from the bottom of his heart. Yu Shinan couldn't help but ask again, "Young friend, what you said about one is marked by the company one keeps. Where did this sentence come from?" Zhang Feng was a little confused. He scratched the back of his head, unsure if Yu Shinan actually didn't know about this. But when he saw Yu Shinan's expression, he said, "Isn't this a sentence from Jin Fu Xian's The Proclamation of the Crown Prince? Don't tell me Mr. Bosher doesn't know? This was a famous sentence from the ancient times." He actually didn't know? A great Confucian scholar of this era didn't know? How could this be? When Yu Shinan heard this, he narrowed his eyes and thought for a long time. He had read Jin Fu Xian's The Proclamation of the Crown Prince and so on. But this was the first time he heard of this. But all of a sudden, Yu Shinan thought of something. That was the well-read Chu Suiliang. He didn't know where this guy was. Was there such a rare book? He heard that this guy had been reading all kinds of unique books for the past 2 years. Could it be that this book was also unique? Otherwise, why hadn't he heard of it before? Chapter 630. However, Yu Shinan faintly felt that he had been led astray. After thinking for a while, he could not think of a single clue. He glanced at Feng Xianling and saw that Feng Xianling was not surprised. He could only temporarily suppress the doubts in his heart and asked, "Little friend, do you mean that you want to educate them from their roots?" "Yes." Zhang Feng slapped his thigh and once again thought of a famous saying, "Mr. Bosher, some people are great in life. They don't have to worry about tomorrow since they were born. They can live a life of luxury. But they don't think that sometimes a meal or a drink is the dream of a poor student." Zhang Feng pointed to the meat and wine on the table and said, "Take the food on our table for example. This table is worth at least 100 coins, right? If it was in the hands of a rich family, it wouldn't matter. Isn't it just 100 coins? But have you ever thought that this 100 copper coins might be a harvest that a poor family wouldn't even dare to dream of in a year? Not to mention eating and drinking. If this trend continues for a long time, it will inevitably cause a catastrophe." Yu Shinan and Feng Xianling heard this and could not help but ask in unison, "What catastrophe?" In their view, this was just a normal thing. Zhang Feng lightly pointed to the door and said, "People have dreams. Just like how we think when we see such a table of delicious food before we go to school? It's bound to be. One day in the future, I will eat meat and drink wine like this. Isn't this normal?" Yu Shinan and Feng Xianling did not understand what Zhang Feng wanted to say, but after hearing this, they thought about it and nodded. "You're right. This is a normal reaction. But don't say it. This shouldn't be, right?" Zhang Feng sighed and put the wine cup on the table. He stood up and shook his head with his hands behind his back. "Wrong. Big and very wrong. In fact, this thing is called a dream. And there is another saying, it is called desire. Human desire is a terrible thing. Once it takes shape, this thing is enough to destroy a family, a city, and even a country." Buzz. This time, Yu Shinan and Feng Xianling really understood. If they still did not understand at this time, then there was really a problem. Previously, when Zhang Feng had not mentioned it, they had thought that it was something that humans should have. But at this time when Zhang Feng said this, they carefully thought about what Zhang Feng said today. Yu Shinan could not help but ask, "Zhang Feng, little friend, you mean you want to use military training to temper these people's temperament?" Zhang Feng gave Yu Shinan a thumbs up in approval. "Yes. That's my goal. Think about it. Many of these people might enter the imperial court and become officials in the future. I don't want to be criticized behind my back when the time comes saying, 'Ayaya, look, this corrupt official is from the White Deer Academy.'" Chapter 631. Yu Shinan almost sprayed a mouthful of wine on Zhang Feng's face. He waited for a long time. "That's all you said? Who dared to do this in the Tang dynasty? Except for the emperor, there were only a few people who dared to do this." However, Yu Shinan couldn't find any sign of anger. After all, it was a big taboo to rashly ask about someone's master. Zhang Feng was lucky that he didn't get angry. Although he knew that Feng Xianling had told him about Zhang Feng's master, he couldn't resist his curiosity. He could faintly hear the eight-front formation and the Zhuge legacy from it. However, he wasn't sure. After all, he hadn't studied this kind of military book. However, at this time, seeing Zhang Feng's lonely look, Yu Shinan knew that he couldn't ask. He could only go to Feng Xianling and ask, "Brother Feng, this." Feng Xianling looked at Zhang Feng and then looked at Yu Shinan and said, "In fact, I forgot to tell you this. This guy once said that he had cultivated on Wutai Mountain for 5,000 years, and that Zhuge Kongming was his disciple." At first, Old Man also thought that this guy was talking nonsense, but now Old Man felt that this guy's words could be combined with something in military books. Could it be? Yu Shinan's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. He hurriedly covered Feng Xuanling's mouth. "Brother Feng, you actually believe such a preposterous excuse? This is just this guy's nonsense. Although this is the first time I met this guy, although he is reliable, his mouth." Feng Xianling sighed and nodded. "This is all because of this guy. If he could have a family, he wouldn't be so lonely. This guy was once hit hard. His family was originally a rich family in XX place. Because of a mountain flood, The whole family died. If he was a normal person, he would have done something. Yu Shernan fell silent. He finally understood why this brat was so out of tune and why he talked so much nonsense. This was all caused by loneliness. Yu Shernan couldn't help but sympathize with Zhang Feng. Young friend, old man knows that you're not feeling well, but people need to look forward. Think about it. Once your academy becomes famous in the Tang dynasty, won't you also have a meteoric rise? When the time comes, the proper thing to do is to help your Zhang family flourish. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He looked suspiciously at the two old fellows who were whispering to each other, wondering what they were talking about. However, he didn't want to listen to the whispers of the two old men. Borrowing Yu Shernan's words, he sighed and raised his cup to drink. Fine. Old Feng usually looked like an honest person. Who would have thought that this support would be so beautiful? However, Zhang Feng's face was still full of bitterness and hatred. He said, "Isn't that so? That's why I spent all my life learning and all my wealth to establish this White Deer College." If you don't see any results, this kid will immediately close the academy. If this kid is lucky enough to satisfy Mr. Bosher, then would you like to stay? Chapter 633. Yu Shernan and Fang Xianling were so shocked that their jaws almost fell off. So, after saying so much, he just wanted Yu Shernan to come to the academy? And he even made the bet in such a roundabout way? When he heard that Zhang Feng wanted to do a medical trial, and heard that the miracle-working Dr. Sun Simiao was on the mountain, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. But Zhang Feng didn't give him a chance at all, and just made the contract? Wasn't this forcing a deal? Yu Shernan looked at Zhang Feng, who glanced at him from time to time. He was angry and amused at the same time. If you want to invite me to the academy, you have to say it clearly. What are you doing? Yu Shernan heaved a sigh. Well, if I had known, old man wouldn't have come here today. Now I've gotten myself into trouble. Alas. Old man thought you were doing something. It turns out that you've been digging a hole for old man. Although Yu Shernan looked angry, he didn't feel anything in his heart. If he didn't want to go, he could stand up and walk out. But he didn't. After all, Zhang Feng had really drawn out his gluttonous bug. After thinking for a while, Yu Shernan said, "Well, since you've made the bet, if old man breaks the promise with your ability, the whole Chang'an city will know in less than 2 hours." Zhang Feng's eyes lit up when he heard that. Hey, what are you talking about? Am I, Zhang Feng, that kind of person? Fang Xuanling's mouth twitched. He coughed and turned around. He couldn't bear to look. Now he really knew Zhang Feng's ability. They hadn't done anything yet, but he had already won over Yu Shernan. This was a literary titan that even the emperor had to deal with carefully. He in such a short period of time, actually, this little demon. Fang Xianling couldn't help but write down Zhang Feng's bad habit of digging holes in his notebook. He had to go back and study it. Otherwise, when he sold him, he would still happily count the money for Zhang Feng. But at this moment, Zhang Feng's words made Fang Xuanling's hand tremble. He almost threw the wine glass away. Zhang Feng rubbed his hands and looked at Yu Shernan, saying, "Mr. Bashi, don't worry. You will see results within a month after the academy opens." Old man doesn't care about these things, but I heard that the scenery of Mount Shao is unique, and there are caves and waterfalls accompanying it. What kind of residential area are you building there? I heard that the house is not bad. Prepare a big house for the old man, facing the waterfall. Okay. Don't worry, I will get you the best place. Zhang Feng immediately agreed. Now that Yu Shernan had won over, Zhang Feng's heart was as sweet as honey. However, he rubbed his hands and asked, "But Mr. Bashi, I heard that you Chu Suiliang, Elder Chu Ouyang Sun, Elder O, and Shuejiha, Elder Shui." Stop. Yu Shernan couldn't help but explode. So you, kid, are not only lusting after me, but also want to take these old bones into Mount Shao? What do you think you have in Mount Shao? If it was just him, then Yu Shinan would have considered it as a favor to Li Shimin, and would have also come. Moreover, he also didn't want to miss out on this opportunity. But now he actually wanted to trap his 3 good friends in? How could that be possible? Yu Shinan stood up, his face gloomy. Kid, don't go overboard. Do you know who the 4 of us are? If it weren't for your poetry collection, the old man wouldn't have come to see you. As a junior, he agreed to go to the academy because of the novelty of your academy. You actually hit the snake with the stick and want them to come? Yu Shinan was so angry that he laughed. Then show me what you're really capable of. That's right, I remember that the previous Dragon Boat poetry meet was cancelled due to various reasons. If you want the 3 of them to come, then show me what you're really capable of. The Mid-Autumn Festival Poetry Meet is a grand event that gathers all the literati in the world. When the time comes, I will also be participating. If you're really capable, then let those 3 old fogies come to you during the poetry meet. As they spoke, Yu Shinan had already walked to the door. However, at the door, Yu Shinan paused and looked at Zhang Feng. He said meaningfully, "The old man thinks highly of you." Zhang Feng was speechless. How the F***ck could this be? However, wasn't it just a poetry meet? Just nice. Lao Tzu would make a pot of stew for him. He was just worried about not having a teacher. He even sent this to me? Good. At that time, there will be so many poems from the Tang and Song dynasties. I don't believe that I will lose. All right. Thank you for your kind words. I will definitely be there on time. However, Zhang Feng's eyes turned and said, Mr. Bosher, why don't I give you 2 jars of wine? Yu Shinan, who had just walked out of the door, heard this and could not help but pause again. He seemed to hesitate. However, in the end, his rationality was defeated by Zhang Feng's wine. Yu Shinan sighed and said, Is the old man the kind of person who is greedy for wine? If you really want to give him, why not give him 10 jars? Okay. Chapter 636. Li Shimin had long wanted to take action against Tubo, an uncertain factor. But because of some things, Li Shimin could only put it aside for the time being. But now, this was God's will. Did God want him to subdue Tubo? Thinking of this, Li Shimin waved his hand and interrupted everyone. Present all the memorials. I'll decide on the specific matters after tomorrow's court meeting. After everyone left, Li Shimin carefully read the documents one by one and then asked, Xiao Gizi, do you think it's okay to send troops now? Xiao Gizi was stunned. It was the first time the emperor had asked him this question. Xiao Gizi thought for a moment and then said, Your Majesty, if we send troops now, we don't have any justification. I think it's okay to first deploy troops in these places that are often robbed, and then station a large number of troops to guard the market. Li Shimin was silent. Tell Qing Yaojin, Yu Qigong, Qin Xiong, and the others to come quickly. As you wish. Li Shimin was very conflicted. Looking at the territory of the Tang dynasty and Tubo, which was deep in the Tang dynasty, he really felt more and more uncomfortable. If he could take this opportunity to directly eradicate Tubo, it would definitely be a magnificent feat that would make him famous for 100 generations. Didn't the old stubborn people in the court say that he didn't have any great achievements during his reign? If he took down Tubo, just as Li Shimin was getting more and more excited and wished that he could directly lead the troops to kill Tubo, Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin walked into the imperial study with Qin Xiong, who was relatively smaller than them. Old General, Subordinate General, Cheng Yaojin, Yu Qigong, and Qin Xiong pay respects to your Majesty. Several people's voices interrupted Li Shimin's imagination. Dear ministers, please take a look at these secret reports. Li Shimin pointed to several secret memorials on the table. The 3 of them accepted the order and went forward to check them. However, at this time, the 3 of them frowned deeply. Even Cheng Yaojin, whom Li Shimin had been looking forward to, was frowning at this time. What? Is there anything wrong with this secret memorial? Li Shimin was a little angry. When Qin Xiong heard this, he looked at the three of them and said, Your Majesty, this secret memorial is very detailed, but I feel that it is a little unusual. Your Majesty, I also think it's a little strange. Logically speaking, if such a big thing really happened in Tubo and they really couldn't defend it, they would definitely come to the Tang dynasty for help. But until now no one has come. It doesn't make sense. How could they not know what the emperor meant? To be able to know at the first moment, and then not be in a hurry to discuss countermeasures, but to summon the generals in Chang'an, and the meaning was self-evident. The emperor wanted to go to war. Chapter 637. Between the Taiji Palace and the political announcement hall, there was a barbican. At this time, in a small room in the barbican, Cheng Yaojin and the others pulled a discontented Feng Xianling to sit at a square table. Feng Xianling was somewhat resistant to the strong smell of fox, sweat, and fleas on their bodies. However, he also knew why the three of them had brought him here. However, he also had something important to report to the emperor, so he no longer acted reserved and directly asked, Why did the three of you bring this old man here? This was the armaments department, which was the territory of the military department. Coming here at this time meant that the three of them had encountered a big problem. Along the way, he heard that the little yellow door went straight to the imperial palace, so he faintly guessed that this matter was definitely not ordinary. Hearing Feng Xuanling's question, Cheng Yaojin and the others didn't pretend. The three of them were straightforward people. Cheng Yaojin, Yu Qigong, and Qin Xiong looked at each other and said, We just went to see the emperor. The emperor is preparing to Tubo. While speaking, Cheng Yaojin's right hand gently drew a line across his neck. How could Feng Xianling not know what this action meant? Moreover, the emperor already had that intention. But why did he choose this time? He clearly remembered that when the emperor talked about this matter last time, Fengzi clearly told the emperor that this was not a good time to start a war. What's going on? Feng Xianling couldn't help but feel anxious. What's going on? The Tang dynasty is lacking everywhere. Although it's a bit better, it's not a good time to use force. And what's going on here? Before Cheng Yaojin could speak, Yu Qigong sighed and said, Old Feng, this matter is a bit complicated. If you choose Longyu, Jiannan and Guanyi, as long as it's close to Tubo, you'll basically be harassed every day. Even Tubo's soldiers will participate in the plundering. Feng Xianling turned pale with fright and hurriedly asked, This is impossible. How is this possible? Cheng Yaojin forced a smile. When people are hungry, they will even eat mud. Besides, it's not like you don't know that the last locust plague came from Tubo and other places, right? Think about what happened to the Tang dynasty, and think about the Tubo dynasty. Hearing this, Feng Xuanling's face suddenly changed. He muttered, Could it be that Tubo? Yeah. Yu Qigong patted Feng Xuanling's shoulder and said, Our Tang dynasty has Zhangfeng, so we've been dealing with the locust plague since the beginning. You should know about this, right? Feng Xianling fell silent. Indeed. In the beginning, when Zhang Feng said that there would be a plague of locusts, no one took it seriously. Otherwise, they would have started stockpiling food, and then slowly started to control the plague. Chapter 639. Yu Qigong was furious. He felt wronged. And Qin Shubao felt the same. But just when their nerves reached the limit, Cheng Yaojin said slowly, Zhang Feng wants the boy from the Wei family to be an assassin, someone even better than Jing Kua. What? What does he want to do? Damn talent. Let's go. Old Black, go up the mountain and get him into the military camp. It's a waste if such a talent doesn't go to the military camp. While speaking, Yu Qigong got up and pulled Cheng Yaojin away. Feng Xianling, who was watching the show, couldn't sit still. He hurriedly held the two men down, his eyes red with anxiety. What do you want to do? This academy is registered in the Ministry of Revenue. If you dare to do this, you'll have to face the wrath of the emperor. And Old Black, you know what to do, don't you? Feng Xuanling's warning instantly extinguished the restlessness in the hearts of Yu Qigong and Qin Xiong. They anxiously pulled their hair. Talent. This was a talent. 100 years? They hadn't seen such a talent in 1,000 years. Not to mention the Bullsh *T military science. Just based on what Old Black said just now, they knew what it would mean if this matter was spread out. At this time, seeing the two anxious, Feng Xianling slowly stroked his beard and said, "Old man knows what you want to say, but this academy is the emperor's idea. You should know how important this academy is to the emperor. And the reason why Chang'an city is what it is today is because of Fengzi's own money. He distributed 20,000 don of grain on this deserted mountain, so that the grain shortage in Chang'an city could be controlled." Yu Qigong was stunned. He knew about this, but he didn't expect that this boy did all this. Isn't this the crown prince's idea? How did this boy named Zhang Feng get the credit? Qin Xiong was a little confused. What was all this? He had just returned to Chang'an city out of curiosity about the academy. However, he had learned that the academy was established by the crown prince and managed by a genius from Chang'an. Moreover, the rumors that were spreading like wildfire were all from White Deer College. It would be better if the crown prince was the one behind it. But why did it sound like the crown prince wasn't the one behind it? If that was the case, then this kid. Who was he? Seeing Feng Xianling and Cheng Yaojin like this, Qin Xiong couldn't help but be even more confused. "Elder Feng, can you tell me what's going on? This kid called Zhang Feng, is he really so miraculous? Magical? Let Lao Tzu tell you. Are all the soldiers in your camp eating fine salt now?" Qin Xiong didn't know what Cheng Yaojin wanted to say, but he still nodded subconsciously. "Yes. That's right, what do you think of this thing?" Cheng Yaojin knocked on the table. "Old Hey, if you have anything to say, just say it. Why are you blabbering here? You're acting like a woman. What's wrong with this fine salt?" "That's right, I use this thing to brush my teeth every day. Don't tell me you're the one who made this thing?" Yu Qigong was also furious. He wasn't a good-tempered person to begin with. He couldn't stand being watched by Feng Xianling and Cheng Yaojin. Seeing that he was scared, Cheng Yaojin looked at him with disdain. "Vulgar. Fine, I won't tease you anymore. This salt was created by Zhang Feng. Also, didn't you keep thinking about the method to deal with the Tubo Turks and the other countries? Who came up with it?" Yu Qigong's eyes widened. "Are you going to say that this was all created by that bastard?" Cheng Yaojin nodded in front of Yu Qigong's shocked eyes. Yu Qigong only felt waves of pain in his head. His head hurt. It hurt a lot. Damn it, how could such a talent be wasted like this? No, he had to get this kid in his hands. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to sleep well. Yu Qigong felt as if a piece of his flesh had been bitten off. He had only heard about the weapons and shields in the past, but what about now? The salt and the schemes were all created by this brat. How could the impenetrable shield and the spear be fake? Whoever told him that these were fake, he would definitely break that person's third leg. At this time, Qin Xiong was the same as Yu Qigong. This time, they came back because of the lack of food in the military camp. On the other hand, it was because of this impenetrable shield and this miraculous spear. This matter had already become a legend among the upper echelons of the military. At first, everyone just treated it as a rumor. But after meeting Cheng Yaojin, he couldn't help but be surprised. This thing was actually real. But now, after hearing what Cheng Yaojin and Feng Xianling said, he felt terrible. This was real. This was all real. It seemed that this time, no matter how big the riot at the border was, even if the Tubo and the Turks' allied forces were, as long as he had this shield and spear, he would not be afraid. What was there to be afraid of? Chapter 640. Yu Qigong and the other man could no longer sit still. Right now, the military camp was short of food, and the situation there was precarious. A war could break out at any time. At this time, after confirming that Zhang Feng indeed had such a divine weapon, how could the two of them sit still? They grabbed Cheng Yaojin by the back of his collar and hurriedly ran out. Feng Xianling saw this and shook his head without saying anything. After all, Feng Zi had already said this. It would be strange if these people could sit still. Moreover, military science was indeed of great importance. How could he sit still? He also hurriedly got up and went to the imperial study. Just as he walked out of the barbican, he bumped into Zhang Sunwuji, Wei Zheng, and Du Ruhui. When the three of them saw Feng Xianling coming out of the barbican, they asked in surprise, "Master Feng Yu." Feng Xianling stroked his beard speechlessly. "Yu Qigong just took me inside." Their expressions became strange, but they didn't say anything. Zhang Sunwuji cupped his hands and said, "Let's go. I know you're also going to the emperor. Let's go together." Feng Xianling was surprised. "Why are you going to the emperor's place?" Zhang Sunwuji glared. "You don't know? We just received news that the envoys from Tubo and Tuyuhun have entered the city. You don't know?" How could Feng Xianling know this? He had just come out of Zhang Feng's little tavern and bumped into this fool. Now that he bumped into these three, how could he know? Feng Xianling cupped his hands. "Let's go. We'll talk as we walk." "Master Zhang Sun, are the envoys from Tubo here because of the internal strife?" Zhang Sun nodded with a serious expression. "Yes, it's because of this. But just now, Old Man saw Old Black Chung and the other two leaving the palace in a hurry. What's the meaning of this?" Feng Xianling sighed. "Your Majesty wants to start a war." "What?" The three of them heard this. He couldn't help but be shocked. The emperor actually wants to start a war? Start a war? How was this possible? Does His Majesty not know the current situation of the Tang dynasty? How could they start a war like this? When the three of them heard this, they knew that this matter was indeed serious. They stopped talking and hurried to the imperial study. Before the group of people could report to the eunuch at the door of the imperial study, Xiao Gizi hurriedly indicated for them to enter. Li Shimin had been waiting in the imperial study for a long time. As soon as the four of them entered, Li Shimin asked directly, "Now what do you think about Tubo's matter? Should we start a war or not?" When Feng Xianling heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said, "Your Majesty, this is a serious matter. This old subject just met General Chung and the other two. From their conversation, I learned that the army is seriously short of food. Many soldiers only eat 2 bowls of porridge every day." Chapter 641. Dong. When the clock struck the third time at 5 o'clock, the clock slowly rang. A sharp and cold voice sounded in the political announcement hall. "The emperor has arrived." As the voice fell, the officials hurriedly bowed and shouted in unison, "Welcome, Your Majesty." Under everyone's surprised gaze, Li Shimin slowly walked up the 8-step stairway to heaven. He sat on the dragon throne and waved his hand indifferently. At this moment, Li Shimin's condition was not good. After all, no one would be in a good mood after a night without sleep, let alone Li Shimin, who was about to be removed from his heart. Li Shimin's red eyes swept around indifferently. Then he said indifferently, "Do you have a report to present today?" "Your Majesty, this old official has a report to present." The moment Li Shimin's voice fell, Wei Zheng hurriedly stepped forward. Li Shimin waved his hand. Wei Zheng then said, "Your Majesty, yesterday the envoy from Tubo Naritu and the envoy from Tuyuhun, Zhaku, have already settled down in the Honglu Temple. They are now outside the palace, asking to see Your Majesty." "Oh, what are they here for?" "Your Majesty, do you still remember the drought and the locust plague in Tubo? Because of these 2 disasters, Tubo is now in the same situation as the Tang dynasty. They are extremely short of food, and it has become so serious that civil unrest has broken out." Li Shimin pretended to be surprised and looked around at the crowd. The crowd only cared about avoiding Li Shimin's gaze. Li Shimin could not help but secretly despise these people. In the end, Li Shimin swept his gaze over Yu Qigong and the other two, asking, "General Yu Qi, is this true?" Yu Qigong reluctantly walked out of the queue and said, "Your Majesty, what Prime Minister Wei said is true. Not only that, General Li Jing of Yuzhou has sent news that Tuli has dispatched 100,000 elites, but his purpose is not pure. According to the news from Longyu Dao, Longyo's border has often been harassed by Tubo's rebels and soldiers. They are so annoyed that many places in our Tang dynasty have been plundered. Thus, this old general believes that the Turks must have dispatched their troops to take down Tubo. Hearing this, all the ministers in the political announcement hall were shocked. What? The Turks are simply too ambitious. Your Majesty, send the troops. Attack. No. Right now, our Tang dynasty is also extremely short of food. If we send troops now, it will only bring a heavier burden to the people. When all the old ministers heard this, they could not help but burst into an uproar. There was no other way. If the Turks really sent troops to take down Tubo, then wouldn't the Tang dynasty be in imminent danger? If they did not send troops now, then Tubo would definitely not be able to stop the Turks. Because of the Tang dynasty's plan against Tubo, they would lose all their property in Tubo. How could they not be anxious? But once they sent troops, then the consequences. Who would dare to think about it? Therefore, at this time, everyone fell into an endless struggle. Li Shimin was annoyed and snorted coldly. In an instant, everyone's discussion came to an abrupt end. Dear ministers, what do you think now? This time, Tubo must have come because of the 100,000 Turks. Do you think we should help them or not? This, Feng Xianling du Ruhui, and the others were silent at this time because they already knew the result of this matter. But the emperor was now testing them. He wanted to test the foundation of these old guys. Sure enough, after a while of hesitation, the minister of the Ministry of Work said, Your Majesty, this matter needs to be discussed again. Our Tang dynasty is suffering from a food shortage at this time, so it's not good to mobilize the troops. Then let me ask you, once the Turks send troops, what should we do? That person was speechless. At this time, the officials who had prepared some words could not help but swallow back their words. That's right. If we don't help, then once the Turks take down Tubo, the door of the Tang dynasty will be completely open to the Turks. At that time, the Turks will come and go as they want, and we will not be able to do anything to them. What should we do? This is a serious problem. At this time, another official said, Your Majesty, even if the Turks really take down Tubo, it does not mean that they will attack our Tang dynasty. Moreover, now that the Turks are also suffering from a plague of locusts, they should be more in need of food than our Tang dynasty. Cattle, sheep, and horses are almost out of food. How can they have the energy to start a war? Li Shimin wanted to kill someone. However, he still suppressed the impatience in his heart and asked, Tell me your opinion. Hearing this, that person said, In fact, to put it bluntly, this is all because of the lack of food. Even if they can start a war against Tubo, in the end, both sides will suffer in the end. Moreover, Tubo does not have food at this time. In this way, even if they take down Tubo, without waiting for him to finish, Li Shimin speechlessly interrupted this stubborn old man. Okay, I know what you mean. Then Li Shimin rubbed his forehead, looked at Wei Zheng and said, Prime Minister Wei, you said that Tubo's envoys are here? Wei Zheng cupped his hands and said, They are here, waiting for the summons outside the hall. Summon them. Yes. Hearing this, Xiao Gizi waved the whisk in his hand and shouted in a sharp voice, Summon Tubo's envoys, Nari Tu and Tuyuhan's envoys, Zhako. Chapter 642. Summon Tubo's envoy Naoritu and Tuyuhan's envoy Zak. Summon. The imperial guards passed the imperial edict one by one. A moment later, two people in Tubo's distinctive costumes hurried into the political announcement hall. Unlike the previous court meetings, the two envoys lowered their posture and bowed as soon as they entered the political announcement hall. They did not dare to look at the faces of Li Shimin and the others. After taking 10 steps into the political announcement hall, the two of them stopped and bowed in the etiquette of the Tang dynasty's officials meeting the monarch. They said, Tubo's envoy Naoritu and Zak pay respects to your Majesty Tang emperors. Li Shimin waved his hand faintly as if nothing had happened. Dispense with the formalities. Come and sit down. As Li Shimin's voice fell, the little eunuch hurriedly brought 2 futons and placed them on both sides of the center of the hall. After the two of them thanked Li Shimin, they sat down with trepidation. For what reason have the two of you come to my great Tang? Before the two of them could sit down, Li Shimon's voice made them hurriedly stand up again. Naoritu hurriedly took out a gilded letter of credence from his arms and said, "This is a letter written by Songtsen Gambu to your majesty. I hope your majesty Tang emperors can read it." Zack also hurriedly got up, took out a letter of credence from his arms, and handed it to Xiaogizi. After a thorough examination of the martial arts, it was presented in front of Li Shimon. Li Shimon did not read the letter of credence immediately, because he knew that the content of the letter of credence was nothing more than inviting the Tang dynasty to send troops and so on. Li Shimon casually put the letter of credence on the desk in front of him, then put his hands on it. Instead, he looked at the two of them and asked, "What brings you here this time?" The two of them looked at each other. Only then did Naritu say, "Replying to your majesty, Tubo is in great trouble this time. So my king sent this humble subject to ask for help from the Tang emperors. I hope that your majesty can give us some help for the sake of our friendship." "What kind of disaster did you encounter? If there is a food shortage, then you can go back. When you came to Chang'an, you should have seen that the Tang dynasty is basically the same as Tubo. You want to help? Just you wait." Sure enough, after hearing Li Shimon's words, Naritu and Zack did not have any reaction. Instead, they were silent for a while before they said, "Your Majesty, we are also aware of the current situation of the Tang dynasty. Therefore, we did not come here to ask for food or anything like that. Instead, we are here to ask your Majesty to send troops to suppress the rebellion in the territory for the sake of the diplomatic relations between the two countries." Li Shimon's eyes flashed. His eyes flashed with shock. "Oh, rebellion? Yes. Chapter 643. Naritu didn't understand Li Shimon's meaning and nodded. "This matter is written in the letter of credence." Li Shimon glanced at Naritu with a faint smile, then looked at Wei Zheng and the others and asked, "Dear officials, what do you think?" Wei Zheng's eyelids twitched. The emperor's heart is wild again. Does he really want to start a war? "Reporting to your majesty, this old subject feels that we still need to discuss this matter. If we rashly send out troops, as the envoy said, India and the other countries are all waiting for us. If our great Tang sends out troops now, wouldn't that be the same as declaring war with India?" Du Ruhui and Feng Xianling also hurriedly bowed and said, "Your Majesty, please reconsider." Seeing that these people had spoken, the officials in the court also hurriedly shouted, "Your Majesty, please reconsider." What a joke. They had a large family and a lot of businesses. At this time, because they had opened up trade with Jinla, Tubo and other countries, they had more businesses. If they started a war at this time, then their losses would be really big. They didn't dare to say it before because these important people of the emperor didn't say anything. They didn't dare to be the first ones. But now that they had spoken, what should they do? They also hurriedly dissuaded. Li Shimon heard this and couldn't help but frown. However, he also knew that this matter couldn't be rushed. He waved his hand lightly and said, "You can stay in the Honglu temple for the time being. I know about this matter, but this is a serious matter. Let me think about it first. After 3 days, I will give you an answer whether it's successful or not." Naritu and Du Ruhui heaved a deep sigh of relief after hearing this. They hurriedly bowed and then left. After the two left, Li Shimon also didn't want to continue the morning court. He waved his hand and Xiaogizi hurriedly said, "Court is dismissed." When everyone was slowly walking out, several little eunuchs called Wei Zheng and the others. When they followed the little eunuchs to the imperial study, Li Shimon was standing on the map and looking at it. When they entered the imperial study, Li Shimon pointed to the 2 opened letters of credence on the desk and said, "Take a look at these 2 letters of credence first." Hearing this, they picked up the 2 letters of credence and read them. The contents of the letters of credence were more or less the same. They just wanted to submit and ask the Tang dynasty to send troops to help them to suppress the rebels in their territory and resist the strong enemies who coveted them. As for the last clause mentioned in the map, it was not mentioned in the letter. It only said that if it was possible, The envoys could choose the best one, and it would be considered as their king's permission. What a sly old fox. After they finished reading it, they couldn't help cursing in their hearts. If you can't do it, how about we think of another way? Then I'll go now. The steward hurriedly rushed out of the pub with the blueprint in his arms. Just as he was about to walk out of the tavern, he bumped into Li Shimen's arms. Li Shimen almost fell to the ground. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was also a little confused. He hurriedly supported Li Shimen and asked, "Lao Li, why are you here? Don't you know the trick?" Li Shimen took a breath and looked at the trembling steward and the things in his arms. His expression softened a little and said, "I have to knock on the door to come here, don't I?" Zhang Feng scratched his head. Li Shimen pointed to the steward and asked, "This is, Steward Zhang is here to." "Oh." Li Shimen didn't wait for Zhang Feng to finish his words. He gave a meaningful, "Oh," and then held a fist and palm salute to the steward and said, "Then it's all right. Have a good trip." The steward shed tears of gratitude and hurried away. As soon as the steward left, Li Shimen sat on the stool and rubbed his chest. He asked, "What's wrong with this old man? Why is he in such a hurry? I heard that you almost overturned Chang'an city these 2 days and looked for carpenters all over the city. Why?" Zhang Feng pointed to the old steward. "It's because I want to make some precision teaching aids. In such a big Chang'an city, I can't find a skilled one." Fortunately, the Zhang family learned about this and said that they took in an old carpenter who used to work in the Ministry of Works. They asked me if I wanted him. What kind of teaching aids are so difficult to make? As far as I know, the musical house in Chang'an city sells all kinds of things. Li Shimen was confused. Zhang Feng shrugged and sighed. "Forget it. Let's not talk about this. I haven't seen you these days. What have you been busy with? Isn't it because of the famine? A lot of people are starving. Have you solved it?" Li Shimen smiled and shook his head. "If it hadn't been solved, how could I come here to have fun?" Zhang Feng nodded knowingly. "Well, since you're here, I'll cook a tortoise for you today." Li Shimen's face turned green. "Tortoise is a curse. And can it be eaten?" "Fengzi, are you cursing me?" Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. "Wait and you'll know. That thing is very nutritious." Li Shimen smiled speechlessly. "Well then I'll wait. By the way, do you still have salt and pepper grasshoppers? Give me some. I'll drink first. There's a hidden compartment in the wine cabinet. Save some for me. There's only a little left." Chapter 645. Zhang Feng's tortoise had already been stewing in the pot for a long time. Therefore, it didn't take long for him to prepare 3 dishes and 2 soups in front of Li Shimen. The tempting aroma of the tortoise soup, coupled with the pepper and the taste of a green grass that Li Shimen didn't recognize, instantly made Li Shimen put down the wine bowl in his hand. He picked up the spoon, gently scooped up a spoonful of milky white soup, and took a sip. Instantly, the strong taste opened Li Shimen's taste buds. This time Li Shimen didn't say a word, which was rare. Zhang Feng could also see that Li Shimen had encountered something, but since Lao Li didn't say anything, he couldn't ask. He could only accompany Li Shimen. After all, he also had a basket of troubles. In the end, the meal was finished. Li Shimen touched his slightly bulging belly, smacked his lips and drank Zhang Feng's unique tea, and said, "Every time I come to your place, I feel that I'm still alive." Zhang Feng smiled. "It seems like you've encountered something again?" Sigh. Li Shimen sighed deeply. "Isn't that so? It's all because of the drought." Zhang Feng was stunned. "Could it be that it has something to do with the little yellow gate yesterday, and the Tubo envoy?" Li Shimen nodded. "You still don't know, right? Because of the food shortage, there's now a civil rebellion in Tubo, which even lasted from Tuyuhan all the way to Tubo. I heard that the envoy brought news yesterday that as long as the Tang dynasty is near Tubo, it's been looted. You also know that after I started working with Shenla here, the focus of my business is basically in Tubo. This time, I've suffered a great loss. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little surprised when he heard this. However, Zhang Feng already had a premonition about this. After all, this rotten idea came from him. At this time, seeing Li Shimin like this, Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder and smiled. I thought it was something big. Isn't this the one? Li Shimin's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This is a small matter? You don't know. Yesterday, I personally went to ask Lord Zhangsun about business matters. Guess what Lord Zhangsun said? According to the Lord Zhangsun, the Tubos Tuli Khan has mobilized 100,000 elite troops from Yuzhou, while India is also eyeing covetously. The Tubo people are here to ask for help. So what? Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin indifferently, clicked his tongue and said, For such a small matter, your hair has turned white again? Is it necessary? Li Shimin was speechless. I say, Fengzi, you really don't mind watching a show. I heard that the emperor wants to go to war. Why are you still making sarcastic remarks here? Zhang Feng pursed his lips. Who did you hear that from? Lord Zhangsun. Then you must have misheard. If you don't believe me, do you dare to make a bet with me? I bet that the emperor will not send troops. Li Shimin was stunned. Li Shimin took the opportunity to ask, Then tell me, if this thing is over, how should we deal with it? Zhang Feng heard this and patted Li Shimin's shoulder. Lao Li, you don't understand this, right? Let me explain it to you. First of all, it's definitely not possible now. I said it last time, and I'll say it again this time. When that piece of junk comes back, you'll have to mend it. Also, this piece of junk might not follow you wholeheartedly. It's like a dog that can't be fed well. What do you want it for? Then how do we deal with it? According to your method, won't it be even more difficult after this famine? Li Shimin asked in surprise. Yes, yes, yes. Zhang Feng smiled slyly. If I say you don't understand this stuff, then you really don't. If you say you don't understand, then why are you still talking here? Isn't it good to do your business properly? Li Shimin's mouth twitched. Isn't it because I don't understand that I have to ask? Otherwise, if there's a big change, won't my business be the first to be affected? When that time comes, I'll be easily affected, and you'll also get less money, right? Also, you need money everywhere now. Li Shimin's words poked Zhang Feng's sore spot. Zhang Feng couldn't help but sigh. Aya, look at you, why are you talking about this stuff out of the blue? Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, Let's not talk about this first. As long as I'm here, you'll be like the turtle in the pot, eating a weight, and you'll be safe. Li Shimin suspected that Zhang Feng was scolding him again, but he still couldn't find any evidence. At this time, Zhang Feng continued, Actually, to put it bluntly, it's just that the Tang dynasty isn't strong enough. Look, from the current situation around the Tang dynasty, you can see this point. The Goguryeo in the north, the Sherwei in the east, the Japanese pirates, the Turks, and so on are all hidden dangers. Now there's also India. But these are all small problems, and the most important thing is still that dashi. Dashi. Li Shimin was dumbfounded. What does this have to do with dashi? Zhang Feng stared and said with a faint smile. It doesn't have anything to do with it, but this is only temporary. After the meridians of the western regions are opened, the reputation of the Tang dynasty will spread far and wide. This dashi, which is on par with the Tang dynasty, will come to touch the Tang dynasty.